Chapter 251. Li Daochong didn't move. He simply punched out in the air, and the force of the punch landed on Master Wang's body. Then, Master Wang was sent flying, and it looked like he was dead. When Wan couldn't believe that this seemingly harmless young man who had been sitting opposite her on the shuttle bus would be so powerful. He punched out in the air, and just the compressed air from the punch was enough to kill a Master Level 11 Qi Refinement Stage Body Refinement Stage Cultivator. Then what level had his cultivation and strength reached? When Wan didn't dare to think further. This kind of power could be ranked among the top in the entire Red Sun planet. She had found a treasure. A sly look flashed across Wen Wan's eyes. Song Jimin felt unwell. His butt, which was sitting on the sofa, suddenly felt very hot, and a sense of fear arose spontaneously. Song Jimin knew very well what it meant to kill Master Wang in an instant. Song Jimin had seen all kinds of storms, but he had never faced a cultivator before. And this unassuming young man was most likely a cultivator. Attack together, kill him for me. Song Jimin shouted and pointed at Li Daochong. He knew that things had developed to this point, and there was no turning back. There was silence, and no one responded. Song Jimin was confused, and the thugs didn't seem to hear him. They just stood there motionlessly. The two assassins hiding in the dark also didn't move. F***ck, a bunch of cowards. I'll give 10 million Federation coins to whoever kills this kid. Song Jimin was furious. Still, there was no movement. Wen Wan was also confused. She turned around and looked at the thugs surrounding her. Their eyes were lifeless, and they didn't move at all. Then, one by one, they fell down without warning. Their faces were ashen, and they looked terrified, as if they had seen something extremely terrifying. Li Daochong looked at Song Jimin indifferently and said, "Change of the deal. 50,000 spirit stones for your life." Song Jimin's fear was unprecedented. He wanted to stand up, but his legs didn't have any strength. His back was soaked in sweat. In just 10 seconds, he felt like he had experienced a century. The other party's strength was far beyond the scope of his knowledge. He had no idea how his subordinates had died. No matter how ruthless Song Jimin was in the face of such an existence, he did not have the heart to be angry. He took out a storage bag from behind him and threw it to Li Daochong. "It's all in there." Li Daochong took the storage bag and scanned it with his psyche force. There were 50,000 spirit stones inside. He put it away and turned to leave. Wen Wan couldn't react in time. She turned around and asked, "Li Daochong, you're leaving just like that?" Li Daochong didn't stop walking. He only said, "I said that 50,000 spirit stones to buy his own fate. This is a deal. He gave it to me and I won't kill him." Wen Wan said, "If we don't kill this kind of person, there will be trouble in the future. He is the lackey of the Ouyang family. If this matter is reported to the Ouyang family, it will be very troublesome." Li Daochong didn't reply. He had already walked out of the villa. Wen Wan bit her lower lip and turned to look at Song Jimin. The latter's face was ashen. He said nervously, "Wen Wan, don't mess around. There are also explosive talismans in this villa. If you touch me, I will die with you." Wen Wan didn't say anything. She smiled slightly and turned to follow Li Daochong out of the villa. Song Jimin secretly breathed a sigh of relief. When he saw Wen Wan and the young man walking away, he hurriedly stood up and prepared to escape from the back door of the villa. But just as Song Jimin stood up, a beautiful robe flew in from outside the door and landed at Song Jimin's feet. The robe looked very familiar. Song Jimin was stunned for a moment. Then, he remembered that this was the coat that Wen Wan was wearing just now. In an instant, Song Jimin's face froze. When he reacted, the robe burst out with a dazzling light. The explosive talisman inside was ignited. Boom! With a loud noise, the entire villa was instantly razed to the ground. An avalanche occurred on the mountain. Snow rolled down and soon buried the soaring flames. After a while, the surroundings returned to calm, as if nothing had happened. There was only a huge pile of snow at the foot of the mountain. The explosion didn't affect Li Daocheng's footsteps at all. It was as if there were only fireworks behind him. Li Daocheng's lips curled into a faint smile. He had expected that Wen Wan would make a move. Therefore, Mr. Song, who wanted to take advantage of him, would definitely die. The difference between paying 50,000 spirit stones and not paying 50,000 spirit stones depended on who made the move. Wen Wan trotted all the way to catch up with Li Daocheng. At this time, she was no longer as relaxed as before. She couldn't hide the fear on her beautiful face. Li Daocheng was so powerful. He could do anything to her in the wilderness. She didn't even have the slightest room to resist. Wen Wan was most worried that Li Daocheng would be tempted by the 10th level talisman in her hand. It was impossible for someone at his level not to know the power and use of the 10th level talisman. Having a 10th level talisman was equivalent to having another life-saving trump card. Take me to the nearest town. Just as Wen Wan was feeling nervous, Li Daocheng stopped and said lightly, "Oh, okay." Wen Wan was shocked and subconsciously replied. Li Daocheng's every action at this time made her feel stressed and scared. Wen Wan took out her skis. Li Daocheng stood in front of her this time. Looking at the young man's back, Wen Wan's heart was filled with mixed feelings. "Will you kill me?" Along the way, they didn't talk to each other. After skiing for more than 10 kilometers, Wen Wan didn't know what was wrong with her mind, so she suddenly asked. Wen Wan had been in the dark for several years. She had seen a lot of deception. She wouldn't be surprised if Li Daocheng wanted to kill her. "Why would I kill you?" Li Daocheng looked at her strangely. "I have a 10th level talisman on me. Don't you want it?" Wen Wan was a straightforward person. She didn't like to beat around the bush. She had thought about it. If Li Daocheng really wanted it, she would give it to him. It was more important to save her life. "I don't want it." Li Daocheng was very straightforward. "You don't want it? How come?" Wen Wan didn't believe it. "You can keep it for yourself. I'm not interested in talismans." Li Daocheng replied indifferently. Wen Wan pursed her lips. She hesitated for a moment and said pitifully, "Li Daocheng, how about I sell this 10th level talisman to you for cheap? Just give me 10,000 spirit stones. In order to get this talisman, I have already gone bankrupt. If you can't give me spirit stones or money, I won't even be able to eat." Li Daocheng felt strange and said, "If you sell it to me like this, won't you suffer a big loss? You can find another buyer. There is still a market for 10th level talismans. You can also go to the underground city's Shadow Serene house to auction it. You can make more money. Why not?" Wen Wan explained, "In that case it's too risky for me. It will expose that I have a 10th level talisman. If I really provoke a cultivator, he can kill me and take the talisman. I won't even have the slightest room to resist." Li Daocheng was silent for a moment and said, "I'm not interested in 10th level talismans. But since you said so, I'll buy it." Wen Wan stopped her snowboard. Li Daocheng took out 10,000 spirit stones and gave it to her. He took the 10th level talisman and the two completed the transaction. About 10 minutes later, a small town appeared in front of them. "Floating Snow Town is in front of us," Wen Wan introduced. "Is there a shuttle port in the town?" Li Daocheng asked. "Yes, but because the flow of people is small, there are no long-distance buses or shuttles. There are only short-distance buses and shuttles to and from the nearby towns." Wen Wan nodded. "Is there a bus shuttle to Shuangyuan Town?" Li Daocheng continued to ask. "Shuangyuan Town? No, Shuangyuan Town is too far away from here. It's at least 2,000 kilometers away. If you want to go there, you can only go to Icicle City first and then transfer to a bus shuttle." "You're going to Shuangyuan Town?" Wen Wan was curious. "Yes," Li Daocheng answered. He didn't want to say anything more. "I'll take you there," Wen Wan volunteered. "How do we get there?" Just buy a second-hand flying shuttle from Floating Snow Town. You can buy it in the town? Hee, I can buy it with me around. While they were talking, they had already arrived at the outskirts of Floating Snow Town. Wenwan put away her snowboard and led Li Daochong into the town. It was so convenient to have a guide. Li Daochong followed Wenwan to a bar in the town. In a world of ice and snow, there was nothing more comfortable than having a sip of wine. The bar was dimly lit and filled with smoke. There were a few scantily dressed waitresses walking back and forth, serving the customers. The customers scattered around the tables were all different. There were both men and women, but there were more men. All of them looked unfriendly and didn't look like they were to be trifled with. When Wenwan pushed open the door of the bar and walked in, gazes from all around swept over her. Some of the gazes were filled with a strong lust. Aha, isn't this the great beauty one? What wind blew you here today? It's been more than half a year since we last met. Chapter 252. Boss Chin, this bar of yours has been open for more than 10 years, yet you haven't renovated it. It's always been like this, aren't you tired of looking at it? Wenwan sat in front of the bar counter, acting like a regular customer. Hee, it's a small business, I don't make much money. Renovating it, it's good like this. Chen Biao laughed. I don't know what you're thinking, cooped up in a place like this. Are you planning to spend the rest of your life? Wenwan asked with a look of pity. I'll spend the rest of my life however I want, it's good like this. Chen Biao said as he mixed the drink in his hand. Miss Wen, can I get you a glass of fire dragon wine or drunken dream? Wenwan turned to look at Li Daochong. What do you want to drink? Li Daochong replied nonchalantly, anything. Wenwan was used to Li Daochong's indifference, so she didn't ask much and immediately said to Chen Biao, 2 glasses of drunken dream. Okay. Chen Biao responded and began to mix the drinks, but his eyes inadvertently glanced at the investigation, and there was some doubt in his eyes. Chen Biao couldn't be clearer about what kind of person Wenwan was. Back then, he and Wenwan left the Dark Night together. In terms of level, Chen Biao was 1 level higher than Wenwan, and the two of them were about the same. However, Wenwan was more ruthless than Chen Biao. The most vicious woman's heart was nothing more than this. Chen Biao's grasp of details was better than Wenwan's, but the two of them had slightly different personalities. Wenwan earned money to cultivate, but Chen Biao was much simpler. He just wanted to earn a sum of money and live happily for the rest of his life. Unfortunately, the two of them didn't get what they wanted in the Dark Night, because they weren't strong enough. There were many 9th-level Qi refinement cultivators in the Dark Night. You'll either have a breakthrough in a short period of time or have a specialty that others don't have. Otherwise, it would be difficult to survive in the Dark Night. There were different levels of assassins. The two of them were not even official assassins. They only did small things and didn't get much money. However, in terms of ordinary people, Wenwan and Chen Biao could be considered top-notch experts. They were only 1 step away from the body-refining Grandmaster realm. Therefore, Chen Biao was very surprised when the strange young man next to Wenwan spoke so coldly to Wenwan. One had to know that Wenwan looked like she was easy to talk to and loved to laugh, but deep down she was an extremely tough woman. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to survive in the underground forces for so long. He still had some tricks up his sleeve. Chen Biao once saw with his own eyes that someone had taken liberties with Wenwan because of her beauty, and then that person castrated her on the spot. She had also seen people who spoke tough to Wenwan and were beaten until their teeth fell out. This woman hid a knife in her smile. When she pulled it out, it was already too late to react. You could only watch her stab you. After mixing a cup, Chen Biao handed it to Wenwan first. The latter quickly picked up the cup and handed it to the strange young man. Wenwan even had a flattering smile on her face. Her whole body was almost attached to the young man. Anyone who understood could see at a glance that Wenwan was in awe of this young man. Li Daochong, Drunken Dream is the specialty of this bar. It's very delicious. The name sounds like a kind of strong liquor. In fact, it's not that exaggerated. However, there are several rare spirit herbs soaked in this wine. It's very good for the human body. After drinking it, you'll have a feeling of floating. When Juan introduced in detail, "Put it down first." Li Daochong did not take it. When Juan's hand was still raised, she obediently put down the cup when she heard his word. There was no trace of anger on her face. She even replied with a smile, "Okay." Chen Biao was stunned. When had he ever seen Juan so easy to talk to? She was so obedient that she did not even resemble herself. "Miss Wen, this friend is?" Chen Biao could not help but ask. "My boss, Li Daochong." When Juan introduced him generously, Li Daochong was stunned when he heard her call him boss. He glanced at Juan. The latter stuck out her tongue and blinked with an innocent look on her face. Chen Biao was even more shocked. There was actually someone who could make Juan call him boss willingly. The way he looked at Li Daochong immediately changed. "Mr. Li, you must be extraordinary to be able to make Miss Wen submit to you. This cup of wine is on me." Chen Biao said generously. "Don't. This is the first time I'm treating my boss to a drink. I don't need you." Juan quickly said. Juan, you brought me here just to drink?" Li Daochong frowned. "Of course not. This is one of the busiest places in Floating Snow Town. Everyone in town would come here for a drink when they're free. There's nothing more refreshing than a cup of spiritual wine in this world of ice and snow. The person we're looking for is not here now. If I remember correctly, he should be here in a while." When Juan felt Li Daochong's impatience and quickly explained. Chen Biao listened from the side and asked curiously, "Miss Wen, who are you waiting for?" "Scorpion." "Him? What's wrong?" "Miss Wen, Scorpion hasn't been doing well recently. He hasn't been able to come to me accurately recently. You might not be able to wait for him." "He's not in Floating Snow Town?" When Juan frowned and her heart skipped a beat. She had patted her chest in front of Li Daochong. Wouldn't it be bad if she couldn't do it? "He's here. However, Scorpion offended the people from the Blood Knife Society. He won back the reputation of the Scarlet Sun planet and obtained the ownership of the Northern forces in one fell swoop." When Juan had never heard of Lei Hu or Mr. Li, so she didn't know how strong they were. However, she was very clear about the strength of the bosses of Planet Scarlet Sun's underground forces. Lei Hu could beat these bosses into pieces, so he was at least a body refinement cultivator in the Qi-gathering realm. He had surpassed the Master Realm and reached the Saint Realm. Mr. Li killed Lei Hu in one hit. What realm was he in? The only thing that Juan could think of was that he was a cultivator. If a cultivator in the body refinement realm could build his foundation, his combat strength could only be described as terrifying. When a martial artist built his foundation, he was commonly known as a saint or a saint. When Juan asked curiously, "What does this have to do with the conflict between Scorpion and the Blood Knife Society?" Chen Biao continued, "After Mr. Li obtained the ownership of the North, he gave it to the famous Third Master Yin. As the biggest boss of Planet Scarlet Sun, Third Master Yin was the one who was most opposed to external underground forces infiltrating Planet Scarlet Sunday. After that, he carried out a massive purge of the forces in the north. The local forces could submit to him, but those who didn't want to submit had to leave. The external forces had to leave Planet Scarlet Sun, or else they would fight. The Blood Knife Society was pushed aside, and their forces were getting smaller and smaller. Floating Snow Town is located in the northwest, next to Icicle City. That is the headquarters of the Blood Knife Society on Planet Scarlet Sunday. Recently, they started to counterattack Third Master Yin. Scorpion had submitted to Third Master Yin long before the black market fight started. The Blood Knife Society wants to take over Floating Snow Town as a transit point, and Scorpion's people are their biggest obstacle. Naturally, they have to get rid of them. Li Daochong listened from the side without any expression on his face. He raised his glass and was about to take a sip. Bang! With a muffled sound, the door of the bar was rudely kicked open. A group of fierce-looking burly men walked in. Their auras were not weak, and they all seemed to be in the 7th or 8th level of the Qi refinement realm. Every one of them had a blood-red knife-shaped figure on their bare arms. Chen Biao's expression froze. "Speak of the devil. Miss One, bring your friend to the private room at the back." Wan was not afraid of these guys, but bringing Li Daochong to Shuangyuan town was her top priority. There was no need to cause trouble. She nodded and stood up. Just as she was about to call Li Daochong, it was already too late. Chapter 253. Brother Ji, this is my friend. He will leave soon. Your seat is still yours, Chen Biao said hurriedly when he saw that the situation wasn't good. Chen Biao didn't want his old friend Wan to have a conflict with these hooligans. Chen Biao wasn't afraid that his old friend would be taken advantage of. He was afraid that these idiots would really piss off Wan. This woman would be ruthless and kill them all. Wan once said that if they couldn't stay on the Red Sun planet, they could go to other cultivation planet. The Federation was so big that there was no place for them to stay. This woman was a lunatic. Chen Biao still wanted to continue operating his bar. If someone died, he would have to scram. Your friend? Who do you think you are? The man called Brother Ji glared at him. Li Daochong sat in his seat and drank the drunken dream. He was about to get up and follow Wan to the private room. He had no interest in the floating snow town. The Mr. Li that Chen Biao mentioned was Li Daochong. He was the person behind Third Master Yin. Now, the authority of the underground forces in the north was his. However, Li Daochong never thought of standing at the front. He just wanted Third Master Yin to help him earn money. Li Daochong knew that with the growth of his cultivation, his consumption would increase exponentially in the future. He couldn't do without a stable income in the long run. Especially in the future, when making high-level talismans, the materials needed would be extremely expensive. However, Li Daochong changed his mind now. He hated arrogant people who bullied others. Li Daochong didn't speak or get up. He just held his wine glass and looked at the wine inside. He shook it twice and took a sip. Wan looked at Brother Ji as if she was looking at a dead man. This guy could have provoked anyone when he came in, but why did he have to provoke Li Daochong? Was the Blood Knife Society awesome? Wan's beautiful eyes revealed a look of sympathy. There might be experts in the Blood Knife Society's headquarters, but in a small place like the Scarlet Sun planet, having 1 or 2 people in the early or middle stages of the Qi gathering was already not enough. These people were courting death by provoking Li Daochong. Even if all the members of the Blood Knife Society of planet Scarlet Sun worked together, they wouldn't be a match for Li Daochong. Wan could see that Li Daochong's face had turned cold. She had seen Li Daochong's method of killing people invisibly. If he wanted to, these people would be dead by now. Wan didn't want things to get out of hand and make things difficult for Chen Biao. She quickly approached Li Daochong and whispered, "Boss, calm down. I'll take care of the rest." As Wan spoke, she leaned against Li Daochong and said to Brother Ji, "Friend, since there are so many of you, why don't you go to a private room? I'll pay for all of your expenses today." Brother Ji looked down at Wan and his eyes lit up. Floating Snow Town was a desolate place, so it was rare for such a beautiful woman to appear. The women in the town's brothels all wore heavy makeup and relied on makeup. If they used a steel wire ball to wipe one side of their face, they would immediately reveal their true colors. Just looking at them was enough to make people want to vomit. Brother Ji retracted his anger and smiled sinisterly. "Beauty, who is this kid to you that a beauty like you is willing to stand up for him?" Wan's beautiful face also revealed a slight smile. "He's my boss. I'm not standing up for him, I'm standing up for you guys." Brother Ji was stunned. The few thugs of the Blood Knife Society behind him didn't understand either. They all looked at each other in dismay. "Stand up for me? Beauty, is there something wrong with your brain? Brother G looked at Wenwan from head to toe and began to wonder if this woman was a fool. Just take it that I'm not thinking clearly. Do you want to go to a private room? Wenwan asked with a smile. You can go to a private room, but you have to be accompanied by a beauty, Brother G said as he reached out to touch Wenwan's face. Chen Biao gasped. He felt that today's matter would be difficult to resolve. His figure flashed out of the bar and grabbed Brother G's wrist. What a joke. If he really touched Brother G's face, Chen Biao was sure that Brother G's hand would be gone. Boss Chen, why are you grabbing me? Brother G said unhappily. Brother G, didn't you want to change to a wristwatch? I'll help you measure the circumference of your wrist, Chen Biao said with a look of a peacemaker. Get out of my way, Brother G pushed Chen Biao away. Right now, he only had eyes for Wenwan. He didn't even think about the wristwatch. Chen Biao staggered and his heart skipped a beat. This guy was really looking for death. Hey, I'm not here. Are you trying to act tough in front of Boss Chen again? Just then, there was a commotion at the entrance of the bar. Brother G turned around and saw Scorpion walking in with a group of people. Brother G's expression turned serious. His pupils shrank when he saw Scorpion. He was just a small leader of the Blood Knife Society in Floating Snow Town. He was only at the 8th level of chi refining and had some brute strength. Scorpion was an old gang member in Floating Snow Town. He was at the 11th level of chi refining and was a master-level fighter. Brother G was no match for him. Brother G felt a chill down his spine when he saw Scorpion. He had nothing to do today, so he brought his brothers to the bar to have some fun. Recently, Scorpion was busy fighting against the infiltrating forces of the Blood Knife Society. He rarely came to the bar. Without Scorpion, no one in Floating Snow Town could do anything to Brother G. He didn't expect Scorpion to arrive so soon after he arrived. Brother G didn't believe it was just a coincidence. Today, the boss said Scorpion was going out to take on a big business. Wasn't he in Floating Snow Town? The boss had personally led his men to intercept Scorpion. But why was Scorpion here? Was he trying to lure the tiger away from the mountain? Brother G's heart skipped a beat. He knew something was wrong when he saw Scorpion walking in aggressively with a group of people. Scorpion, what can you do about what I'm doing? Brother G braced himself and said, I'm going to do it today. Brothers, take them all down. Scorpion came prepared. He didn't say much and waved his hand to give the order. More than 10 burly men behind Scorpion immediately rushed up. Brother G was shocked. Scorpion, don't mess around. I'll tell you the truth. The society has already sent experts to Floating Snow Town. If you dare to touch me, your entire Scorpion gang will suffer. Scorpion smiled coldly. Is that so? Then I'd like to see how I'll suffer. I'll break all of your legs. The gangsters of the Blood Knife Society turned pale. They tried to fight back, but 2 fists couldn't fight against 4 hands. The number of people Scorpion brought was more than 3 times their number. The Scorpion gang members held steel rods in their hands. They attacked quickly and fiercely. Screams filled the entire bar. Soon, Brother G and his men all fell to the ground and wailed. Their legs were already deformed. Chen Biao was about to cry. If you want to fight, go outside. Do you have to fight in a bar? Looking at the smashed tables, chairs, and wine glasses, he felt his heart ache. The tables and chairs weren't worth much, but those wine glasses were Chen Biao's treasures. They were all made of rare crystals. Each wine glass was worth thousands of Federation coins. When Wenwan saw Scorpion arrive, she smiled happily. She turned a blind eye to the chaotic fighting scene. She gracefully passed through the fighting crowd and arrived in front of Scorpion. Surprisingly, no one touched a single strand of her hair. Scorpion narrowed his eyes. Wenwan's skills had improved a lot since the last time they met. Miss Wen, you've also come to Floating Snow Town to join in the fun. I advise you to leave quickly. I'm afraid you won't be able to leave if you're too late. Wenwan smiled. That's great. Boss Scorpion, I want to buy a flying shuttle. Give me a price. Scorpion looked surprised. Miss Wen, you don't even have a flying shuttle now? Where's that sky shuttle of yours? Wan said bluntly, I sold it a long time ago. Scorpion then said, even the famous Miss Wen is short of money? That's really strange. You should know that it's very expensive to buy a flying shuttle from me. Flying shuttles were a civilian means of transportation. However, every single one of them was officially recorded. Flying shuttle accidents happened every day. Basically, it was fine if there were no accidents, but when there were accidents, the shuttle would be destroyed and the passengers would die. Every year, countless people in the Federation died in flying shuttle accident. Therefore, the flying shuttle trade was strictly controlled. It wasn't something you could buy just because you wanted to. Of course, this kind of mainstay industry wouldn't be strictly controlled. Otherwise, it would affect the entire Federation's economy. It was still very easy to buy a flying shuttle in a big city. As long as one's identity was recorded, they could buy it. However, in a place like Floating Snow Town, it wasn't so easy. They could only buy a black shuttle. Give me a price. 200,000. Hearing Scorpion's price, Wan's pretty face changed slightly. However, it was fleeting. She then said, 200 spirit stones. I don't have cash. Scorpion smiled. Okay. When Wan turned around and glanced at Li Daochong, who was still sitting at the bar counter and drinking from his glass, she then turned around and said, Where's the flying shuttle? I want it now. Chapter 254. Young man, can you buy me a drink? Many drinkers in the bar left when they saw the conflict between the Blood Knife Society and the Scorpion Gang. Only a few drinkers continued to sit in their seats and drink the wine in their hands indifferently. In the corner, a hunchbacked old man trembled as he walked to Li Daochong's side and said while the two sides were engaged in a bloody battle. Li Daochong glanced at the hunchbacked old man. He didn't think much of it except for feeling a little strange. He handed Wan's glass of wine to him. After half a glass of wine was mixed, Wan didn't drink it. However, when Li Daochong handed the wine to the old man, a cold light flashed in the corner of his eyes. Just as he was about to take the wine glass, the old man's hand moved inadvertently. It was so fast that ordinary people couldn't see his movements at all. Unfortunately, Li Daochong wasn't an ordinary person. He saw the old man's every move. The hunchbacked old man put something in Li Daochong's glass. Li Daochong's eyes flashed with murderous intent. Grandpa, why are you here? Little brother, my grandpa is old and has dementia. I hope he didn't disturb you. An innocent-looking girl held the hunchbacked old man and greeted Li Daochong. It was somewhat strange for such a combination to appear in such a bar. Li Daochong replied faintly, no. The girl said to the hunchbacked old man, Grandpa, didn't I buy you wine? Why are you still taking it? As she spoke, the girl threw the wine glass in the hunchbacked old man's hand and pulled him back to the previous seat in the shadows in the corner. When Li Daochong entered the bar, he had already scanned the entire bar with his telekinesis. The hunchbacked old man and the girl had been sitting there, very inconspicuous. At this time, after such a thing happened in the bar, most of the drinkers had already left. However, they were still sitting there, as if they didn't care about what happened and weren't afraid. It was unknown what the old man had put in Li Daochong's wine, but Li Daochong pretended not to know. He held the wine cup and took a sip from time to time, but he didn't really drink it. Li Daochong's telekinesis was now much stronger than before, and he could sense everything within a 3-kilometer radius. If he condensed his psyche power together, it would be as if he had seen it with his own eyes and heard it with his own ears, regardless of whether there were obstacles within 100 meters. When Li Daochong saw the hunchbacked old man being pulled away by the girl, he used his telekinesis to envelop them. After the two of them returned to their original seats, an invisible barrier immediately appeared around them, isolating them. However, this barrier was nothing to Li Daochong. Hunchback, how long will it take for the medicine to take effect? The girl's voice was very different from when she was talking to Li Daochong. Almost at the same time, bang, the door of the bar was kicked to pieces. A burly man with a broad saber on his back walked in. A group of Blood Knife Society members followed behind him. Chen Biao's face was sweating more and more. His bar was probably going to be razed to the ground today. The person who came was the boss of the Blood Knife Society in Floating Snow Town, Master Kuei. He was a body cultivator at the peak of the Qi refinement realm and a master-level expert. When Master Kuei came in and saw his subordinates being trampled under the feet of the Scorpion gang members, he didn't fly into a rage. Instead, he smiled and said, "Scorpion, are you satisfied with the bait I released?" When Scorpion heard this, his expression changed. He had a bad feeling. Master Kuei waved his hand. At least 30 people rushed in from the door behind him. There were still many who didn't come in and surrounded the bar. He estimated that there were at least 50 of them. The total number of Scorpion gang members didn't add up to more than 30. It didn't seem like a lot, but in a small place like Floating Snow Town, it was quite a large group. A few days ago, Scorpion found out that Master Kuei had planted a spy by his side. He beat him at his own game, saying that he had accepted a big deal and wanted to make the deal today. Scorpion knew that Master Kuei would definitely chase after him after finding out. This way, the Blood Knife Society in Floating Snow Town would be empty. Scorpion wanted to take the opportunity to wipe out the Blood Knife Society in one fell swoop. At the very least, he wanted to give them a heavy blow and deal them a heavy blow. However, from the looks of it now, not only did Master Kuei not fall for his trap, he even used his own plan to beat Scorpion at his own game. *T. Scorpion's heart sank to the bottom of a lake. Master Kuei smiled and said, "Scorpion, do you think I can't see through your little scheme? Today will be the day your Scorpion gang is destroyed." Ha! Cold sweat broke out on Scorpion's back. He scanned his surroundings. When he saw Wenwan and Chen Biao, a glimmer of hope rose in his heart. He said in a low voice, "Miss Wen, Chen Biao, if you help me, I'll give each of you $5 million. When Master Kuei heard Scorpion's words, he laughed and said, "Ha ha ha, Scorpion, do you think 2 more people can change your disadvantage?" Scorpion only looked at Chen Biao and Wenwan, waiting for a response. He pretended not to hear Master Kuei's words. "Deal." Chen Biao was the first to speak. At this point, Chen Biao was actually forced into a corner. He did not want to provoke the Blood Knife Society, but if the Scorpion gang was defeated by the Blood Knife Society, the situation in Floating Snow Town would change completely. He would not be able to survive here anymore. This bar would also be occupied by the Blood Knife Society. When Wan glanced at Li Daochong, the latter gave her an affirmative look and nodded slightly. Then, he said, "Deal." When Scorpion saw that the 2 of them were willing to help him, he felt a little more confident. Chen Biao and Wenwan's skills were on par with his. If the 3 of them worked together, even if the Blood Knife Society had the advantage in numbers, they would not be able to gain the upper hand. "Scorpion, Master Kuei will let you know what despair is today." Master Kuei's eyes were fierce. As soon as he finished speaking, he pulled out the broadsword on his back and slashed it at Scorpion. This slash was fierce and fast. There was a layer of fire on the blade. Scorpion was shocked. He quickly took a step back and an axe appeared in his hand. Clang! With a crisp sound, Scorpion's hand went numb. A wave of fire energy entered his body, and he quickly retreated. Seeing this, Chen Biao's figure flashed and appeared behind Scorpion. He reached out with both hands and caught Scorpion, stopping him from retreating. Without any warning, a dagger flew out from Wenwan's hand. Whoosh! Clang! Master Kuei easily blocked it. His huge body did not hinder his agility. He took a step forward and slashed at Scorpion again. Chun Biao and Scorpion attacked at the same time. Chun Biao took out a long sword from under the bar counter. With a bang, Chun Biao and Scorpion flew backward at the same time. The difference in strength between them and Master Kuei was very obvious. They were not on the same level at all. When Wan took the opportunity to attack from the side, a silver light slid toward Master Kuei's crotch. A hint of shock appeared on the latter's ferocious face. For the first time, he dodged to the side in a sorry state. Chun Biao and Scorpion steadied themselves and immediately rushed forward to attack, not giving Master Kuei any chance to catch his breath. To Scorpion, the first thing to do was to capture the leader. As long as he took down Master Kuei, no matter how many people the Blood Knife Society had, it would be useless. Master Kuei was not an easy person to deal with. He hurriedly dodged when Wan's vicious attack. Seeing Chun Biao and Scorpion rush forward, he slashed back. Clang! Clang! Two crisp sounds rang out. Chun Biao and Scorpion were repelled again. Just as Master Kuei was sneering, he felt a chill run down his spine. He did not have time to turn around and grab the air. A cold dagger landed steadily on Master Kuei's neck. When Wan smiled as she held the dagger. The movement technique she used just now was extremely ghostly, like a winding spirit snake. In the instant of the sneak attack, there were more than 10 changes under her feet. Even an expert like Master Kuei could not pinpoint her path, and fell for it. When Scorpion saw this, he was overjoyed and said anxiously, "Kill him." When Wan did not make a move, Scorpion was burning with anxiety. He knew that when Wan was not willing to kill a Blood Knife Society leader for 5 million. Scorpion immediately picked up the axe in his hand and chopped down at Master Kuei's head. However, the moment Scorpion made his move, a black light flashed and pierced Scorpion's shoulder. The intense pain made him groan and kneel on the ground. The hunchbacked old man and the girl, who had been sitting in the corner, slowly walked out of the shadows. "Master Kuei, you can't even deal with this kind of trash. If it weren't for us, you would have lost your life here today. No wonder the branch president didn't like you and sent you to a place like this. Your ability is your weakness." An old voice came from the hunchbacked old man. Chapter 255. Two powerful auras instantly filled the entire bar. The hunchbacked old man and the girl exuded an abnormally terrifying aura. They had actually surpassed the Qi refinement realm and reached the Qi gathering realm. In floating Snowtown, most of the Qi gathering cultivators only existed in casual conversations. Scorpion's face was ashen. Master Kuei alone was enough to deal with. If it weren't for Wan and Chun Biao, he wouldn't be Master Kuei's match at all. Judging from their words, the two people who had appeared now were the experts sent by the Blood Knife Society that Brother Ji had mentioned. Scorpion had never seen such powerful auras from the old man and the girl before. Master Kuei's expression was a little disheveled. The cold dagger on his neck made him not dare to move at all. He wanted to resist, but Master Kuei knew that with Wan's skills, if he made the slightest move, the sharp dagger would instantly slit his throat. The hunchbacked old man's gloomy face had a hint of a contemptuous smile. He looked at Wan and said, "Don't you feel a little hot right now?" Wan was the only one among everyone who was unaffected when she saw the hunchbacked old man and the innocent girl appear. After seeing how powerful Li Daochong was, Wan still had some confidence in her heart. Wan smiled and said, "I think so." The hunchbacked old man's turbid eyes shot out a ray of doubt. He turned to look at the young man who was still sitting in front of the bar counter with his back facing everyone. That young man didn't seem to have changed at all. According to his calculations, the goo poison he had planted should have taken effect. The innocent girl's sharp voice rang out. "Little b****, why aren't you taking the dagger away? Do you want me to send you to the afterlife?" At this moment, Scorpion no longer had his usual attitude of a boss. His face was ashen and dejected, and his eyes were filled with despair. Today, the Scorpion Gang was really going to be finished. His more than 20 years of hard work had gone down the drain. Chen Biao stood at the side and kept winking at Wen to let Master Kuei go. The appearance of these two completely tilted the balance in favor of the Blood Knife Society. There was no way to fight. The old man and the woman's cultivation levels were too terrifying, far beyond Chen Biao's imagination. Admitting defeat was the only way Chen Biao could think of to save his life. Fighting to the death would only be courting death. However, Wen turned a blind eye to Chen Biao's hints. Although there was some hesitation in her eyes, in the end, she made up her mind. Wen wasn't very sure. Although she had seen how powerful Li Daochong was, Li Daochong's opponent was at most on par with Master Kuei. However, the strength of the old man and the woman who had just appeared far exceeded that of Master Kuei. The detector on Wenwan's wristwatch showed that the old man and the woman were both in the middle stage of the Qi-gathering realm. This level of strength was quite impressive for a fourth-class cultivation planet. It was enough to become a regional representative. The strength of the Blood Knife Society's branch on planet Crimson Sun was not much stronger than theirs. It was hard to say that Li Daochong was definitely stronger than them. Wen was somewhat nervous. If Li Daochong was not as strong as these two guys, it was very likely that he would lose his life today. Wen did not respond to the woman, but she did not move the dagger in her hand away. It was still on Master Kuei's neck. A green light flashed in the pure woman's eyes, and the aura on her body suddenly increased. She pushed out her palm, and an ink-colored energy shot out from her palm. Chen Biao was shocked. No! Wenwan's face was pale. She looked in Li Daochong's direction and was instantly stunned. Li Daochong was nowhere to be seen at the bar. Bang! There was a muffled sound. The ink-colored energy suddenly exploded when it was 1 meter away from Wen. It seemed to have hit an invisible door, and it dissipated. Wen did not know what was going on. A faint voice sounded in her ear. "Kill him. This kind of scum will be a disaster if we leave him alive." Wen turned around in shock. Li Daochong had appeared beside her at some point. "Oh!" Wen was a little startled as she responded. Master Kuei was shocked. He was about to resist when the cold sensation on his neck swept past him. He covered his neck with both hands and fell to the ground. Blood gushed out from his neck. "Boss!" The Blood Knife Society members around them exclaimed in unison. Chen Biao was shocked. There was no room for negotiation now. Wouldn't they become enemies with the entire Blood Knife Society? Wen instantly regretted her actions because she did not know if Li Daochong could defeat the old man and the woman in front of her. Scorpion watched Master Kuei fall, but he was not happy at all. The old man and the woman gave him too much pressure, so much so that his body was trembling. The hunchbacked old man and the pure woman looked at the unfamiliar young man who suddenly appeared beside Wen and shivered for some reason. A strange look appeared in their eyes, but it quickly disappeared. "Wen, you shouldn't have killed Master Kuei." Chen Biao stood behind Wen and whispered. The pure woman disliked Wen from the moment she entered the bar. In short, as long as a woman was prettier than her, she deserved to die in her eyes. The pure woman looked to be around 20 years old, but she was already over 60 years old. However, she cultivated the ghost technique and had to absorb the Yin essence of a young woman every month to maintain her appearance. Otherwise, her face would be scarier than a ghost. Ghost Nanny was her nickname in the Blood Knife Society. "Miss Wen, you killed Master Kuei. Are you declaring war on the Blood Knife Society on planet Crimson Sun?" The hunchbacked old man asked in a low voice. "Poison goo, cut the crap, kill!" Ghost Nanny shrieked. Everyone covered their ears in pain as if their eardrums were being pricked by needles. As soon as Ghost Nanny's voice fell, she shot forward like a ghost. A withered yellow claw went straight for Wenwan's fair neck. "Be careful!" Chen Biao shouted. Wen stood motionless in the same place. That speed had already exceeded the range of her perception. Slap! Just as when Wan thought she was about to be caught by the ferocious claw, the claw stopped less than 3 inches in front of her eyes. A large hand firmly grabbed Ghost Nanny's wrist. "Are the two of you ghost cultivators?" the owner of the large hand asked calmly. Everyone in the bar immediately focused their attention on Li Daochong. Ghost Nanny looked at her wrist in disbelief. No matter how hard she tried, it wouldn't budge. Poison Gu Old Man's turbid eyes flashed with an imperceptible brilliance. The doubt on his gloomy face grew stronger. When Wan heaved a sigh of relief, she looked at Li Daochong gratefully. "Who are you?" Ghost Nanny had never felt such a strong force on her wrist. If she still couldn't tell that there was something wrong with this young man, she would have lived her life in vain. However, this young man's aura was still very weak. She couldn't feel any pressure from him. "Someone you shouldn't have provoked. Next time you choose a target to poison, you better be careful." "Oh right, there shouldn't be a next time." Li Daochong's tone didn't change. It was as if he was chatting with someone. "Brat, you sure talk big. This old man wants to see if you have the ability to do so." Poison Gu Old Man said. He opened his hand, and several large brown moth-like poisonous insects flew out. Li Daochong smiled coldly. He grabbed Ghost Nanny's wrist and tightened his grip. "Ah!" Ghost Nanny let out a heart-wrenching howl. All the glass products in the bar cracked and shattered. Li Daochong waved his hand, and Ghost Nanny was flung away like a rag, smashing into the flying moth. As the moths were dying, they extended their black needle-like mouths and stabbed Ghost Nanny's body. When Ghost Nanny fell to the ground, her pure face looked as if it had been splashed with sulfuric acid. Her original appearance was revealed. When Wan, who had always been calm, was shocked when she saw that face. There was actually such a terrifying face in the world. It was even worse than Dark Ghost. Chen Biao looked at Li Daochong in astonishment. He hadn't expected that the young man when Wan had brought would be so powerful. A mid-stage qi condensation cultivator couldn't even take a single blow from him. What was his cultivation level? What was his strength? Was he a cultivator? Chen Biao sucked in a breath of cold air. He had never come into contact with such an existence before. Scorpion, who felt that his end was near, saw this scene. He was shocked but also had hope of survival. "The heavens are helping me," Scorpion cried out in his heart. Old Man Du Gu's gloomy face was filled with killing intent. He knew that he had poisoned the wrong person. He had been wondering why the poison hadn't taken effect yet, but now it seemed that the young man had seen through it. Old Man Du Gu didn't dare to hesitate or hold back. He stretched out his hand and a black incense burner appeared in his hand. Black smoke rose from the hole at the top. Old Man Du Gu muttered a few words and opened the lid. Swoosh! Swoosh! 2 black shadows rushed out. Nether snakes. When Wan was shocked, Chen Biao subconsciously retreated 3 steps and pulled Scorpion away. Even Foundation establishment cultivators were afraid of the nether snake's poison. If they were bitten and didn't have the antidote within 10 minutes, they would die without a doubt. But Li Daochong didn't dodge. He stretched out his hands and caught the 2 nether snakes. "Li Daochong, don't touch the nether snakes. They're poisonous." When Wan's beautiful eyes widened as she screamed. However, it was too late. Li Daochong firmly grabbed the 2 nether snakes. Li Daochong's lips curled into a smile. The 2 nether snakes were full of death energy. They were at least at the great ghost level. He gently pinched his hands and the 2 wriggling nether snakes immediately drooped down and became motionless. Beep! 2 nether snakes killed. Soul power gained. Li Daochong's spiritual energy increased slightly. The 2 nether snakes in his hands withered at a speed visible to the naked eye, turning into black powder and dissipating. Old Man Du Gu looked at Li Daochong in disbelief. His strongest trump card couldn't even withstand a single blow from this young man. "Who are you?" Old Man Du Gu asked in horror. "Ah, I'm going to kill you." Old Man Du Gu let out a terrifying cry and flew towards Li Daochong like an evil ghost. Li Daochong didn't move from his original place. He shot out his palm and hit Old Man Du Gu's head. Taking advantage of the momentum, he grabbed her head and a powerful suction force came out from his palm. Old Man Du Gu's fierce and terrifying face instantly showed a look of horror, and then her expression began to change into one of pain. "Senior, please spare my life. Senior, please spare my life. This junior has eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai and provoked you. Please let this junior go." Old Man Du Gu wailed. The ghost chi that she had painstakingly cultivated for many years was disappearing at an alarming rate. Her cultivation base was slowly disappearing. The insufferably arrogant chi-gathering middle-stage expert was now begging for mercy as if she had seen a ghost. Chen Biao and Scorpion looked at Li Daochong in shock. The former recalled that not long ago he was chatting with this young man and suddenly felt that it was very unreal. When Wan stared blankly at Li Daochong, even a chi-gathering middle-stage expert couldn't withstand a single move from him. Was he really a cultivator? Li Daochong acted as if he didn't hear anything. The suction force from his palm increased a bit. Soon Old Man Du Gu's hair turned white and her extremely ugly face collapsed. With a plop, she fell sideways and lost her vitality. Old Man Du Gu saw that the situation was not good. He turned around and fled. But Old Man Du Gu had just turned around, but before he could take a step, he saw Li Daochong with a smile on his face. Old Man Du Gu made a last-ditch struggle. The black bone knife in his hand fiercely stabbed towards Li Daochong. But just as he moved, a silver light flashed in his eyes. Old Man Du Gu's arm holding the bone knife instantly separated from his body and spun in the air before falling to the ground. In Li Daochong's hand, Song ink buzzed. Whether it was a dark ghost or a ghost cultivator, they all made Song ink inexplicably excited. Clap! Li Daochong stretched out his hand and covered Old Man Du Gu's head. Just like before, Old Man Du Gu's body withered and fell sideways. The ghost chi in his body completely disappeared and turned into a wisp of spiritual chi in Li Daochong's body. The bar was as silent as an exam classroom. Chapter 256. Of course, Li Daochong would not show mercy to the ghost cultivators. The hunchbacked old man and the ghost nanny fell to the ground, their bodies shriveled and lifeless. They could not be more dead. The two masters of the Blood Knife Society in the middle stage of chi gathering were killed in one blow. All the members of the Blood Knife Society panicked. The members of the Scorpion Gang looked at Li Daochong in astonishment. "Miss Wan, when did you know such a powerful person?" Chen Biao swallowed his saliva and asked. When Wan felt like she was in a dream. In her opinion, cultivators were so far away from her world. "Senior, thank you for saving us." Scorpion recovered from the shock and hurried forward to express his gratitude while enduring the pain. "You don't have to thank me. I didn't intend to help them. They were just courting death." Li Daochong replied casually. At this time, Brother Ji, whose leg was broken, was lying on the ground shivering. Thinking of how he had shouted at this terrifying young man, his heart sank. And Li Daochong had already forgotten about him. At Li Daochong's current level, how could he care about this kind of thing with an ordinary person? Scorpion had heard from Third Master Een that most cultivators did not like to have too much contact with ordinary people. However, he had been in the underground forces for so many years and was very clever. Just now, this terrifying young man had saved Wen Wan, so they obviously knew each other. Scorpion turned to Wen Wan and said, "Miss Wan, you want a flying shuttle?" Wen Wan nodded. "Yes, can you sell it to me now?" Scorpion hurriedly said, "Miss Wan, you've helped me so much. How can I take your money? I'll ask someone to send one to you in a moment." Scorpion then whispered a few words to a subordinate beside him, and the man immediately left the bar. Li Daochong turned a blind eye to the awe-inspiring gazes around him. He walked to the bar counter and sat down, saying, "Boss Chin, can you make me another cup of that wine? I can't drink this one. It should be drugged." Chen Biao nodded. Of course, of course." Chen Biao casually took away Li Daocheng's glass of drugged wine and threw it into the trash can. He immediately began to mix Drunken Dream. Scorpion ordered his men to drag the 3 corpses out and bury them, while all the members of the Blood Knife Society were taken away. Chen Biao quickly made a new glass of wine and handed it to Li Daocheng. After taking the glass, Li Daocheng took a sip and asked, "Boss Chen, did you put Liang grass in this wine?" Chen Biao replied, "I've added a little, but they're all seedlings and rhizomes. There's a lot of them on the market, so they're not worth much. It's too extravagant to put real scorching sun grass that's more than 100 years old into wine." Li Daocheng was deep in thought. He remembered reading a book about the interpretation of herbs in Xiansong University's library. It said that Liang grass had an amplifying effect on cultivators with fire elemental and lightning elemental cultivation technique. Li Daocheng had absorbed the black underworld lightning during the direct test and transformed it into spirit yang lightning. A few days had passed, and the spirit yang lightning in his body was slowly disappearing. No matter how hard Li Daocheng tried to consolidate it, it was useless. If this continued, it wouldn't be long before the spirit yang lightning no longer belonged to Li Daocheng. This thing was a natural restraint against dark ghosts. If he couldn't beat a powerful dark ghost, Li Daocheng had an extra layer of protection with the spirit yang lightning. Li Daocheng naturally didn't want to watch the duck in his hand fly away, so he had been thinking about this matter for the past few days. Li Daocheng didn't drink wine, but after drinking Chen Biao's Drunken Dream, Li Daocheng felt a very weak warm current form in his body. It wrapped around the spirit yang lightning, but it quickly disappeared. Li Daocheng asked Chen Biao to make another cup to verify whether the feeling he had before came from the wine. At this time, after drinking it, the feeling appeared again. Li Daocheng tasted the taste of Liang grass in the wine, so he asked casually. After getting Chen Biao's affirmation, Li Daocheng became very interested in Liang grass. After the trip to Shuangyuan town was over, he must get Liang grass that was more than 100 years old. Not long after, Scorpion's subordinates returned, driving a Ling Xiao brand shuttle. This was the most famous shuttle brand in the Federation, and it was a first-class luxury car. Wen Wan's eyes were straight when she saw the car. With her status, she couldn't afford such a car. It would cost at least 10 to 20 million Federation coins. "Scorpion, we're just looking for a means of transportation. There's no need to be so luxurious." Wen Wan felt that the car was good, but it was too eye-catching. No matter where it went, it would easily become the focus of attention. "Let's change to another one," Li Daocheng also said. Scorpion originally wanted to curry favor with Li Daocheng, but he didn't expect that he would be doing something unnecessary. He quickly ordered someone to change to a normal shuttle, but this shuttle was a small cargo shuttle, and it was slightly longer than the average shuttle. Scorpion also gave the 5 million commission to Wen Wan, so he naturally couldn't go back on his previous promise. To Scorpion, this amount of money was nothing. If it could be exchanged for the ruling rights of Floating Snow Town, it would be more than 5 million. Li Daocheng was very satisfied with the shuttle he exchanged for. He sat in the driver's seat, started the engine, and flew away. Wen Wan stood in the same place with a disappointed look. She originally planned to follow Li Daocheng to Shuangyuan town, but Li Daocheng obviously didn't want to bring her along. There was a map on the shuttle. Li Daocheng opened it and directly located Shuangyuan town. He then followed the prompt and flew in the direction of Shuangyuan town. The speed of the shuttle was much faster than the shuttle bus. After 1.5 hours, Li Daocheng arrived near the north circle of Planet Crimson Sunday below. A small town with only a few dozen buildings stood alone on the ice field. Due to the extremely low temperature, even conifers couldn't grow. This was Shuangyuan town. Li Daocheng landed the shuttle in an open space outside the town and walked into the town. Li Daochong wanted to find a local to ask about the location of the nearby mine, but he found something wrong when he entered the town. The whole town was quiet. There was nothing except for the sound of the north wind. Li Daochong felt a little strange. He condensed his telekinesis and carefully checked the surroundings. He didn't find any suspicious death aura, but there was no spiritual energy or life force either. There was no one in Shuangyuan town. Li Daochong walked on the only main road in the town and pushed open the doors along the street. There were shops and residences. There was no dust on the furnishings inside. It looked like people were using them. However, Li Daochong didn't see a single living person when he walked down. The town was empty? Li Daochong was puzzled when he vaguely heard a buzzing sound coming from afar. He walked onto the street and saw a few shuttles galloping over from outside the town. One of the shuttles noticed Li Daochong and rushed straight toward him. Li Daochong didn't move. Spiritual energy surrounded his hand, and Song Ink made a move at any time. The shuttle brought a gust of wind and snow and suddenly stopped 2 meters in front of Li Daochong. It was extremely arrogant. Li Daochong's eyes were cold. He almost slashed out with his saber and the shuttle would have been split in half by Song Ink. As soon as the luxurious shuttle stopped, the door immediately opened. A man in a suit and sunglasses came down from it. He glanced at Li Daochong and then opened the back door. A woman in a gorgeous white robe came down from the shuttle, followed by an old man in an ancient robe. The other shuttles were all men in suit. Only one young man was not wearing a suit. Instead, he was wearing a navy blue Taoist robe produced by the Cloud Jade Company. He looked very cultured and refined. Still haven't found anyone? The woman in the gorgeous white robe frowned and asked with a dissatisfied expression. Zhenzhen, we've searched the area within 100 kilometers. We didn't find anyone, the elegant man replied. How can that be? Where can anyone go in just 3 hours? My father sent me a video 3 hours ago. It was clearly very lively here, the woman in white said with disbelief. Miss, could it be that Director Liu found Snow Lady and left first? The old man guessed. A lot could happen in 3 hours. Zhenzhen, I think what Chu Lao said makes sense. Director Liu came here this time because he was determined to succeed. Didn't he say that he wouldn't hesitate to hire the entire town to help him find Snow Lady? The elegant man said. My father brought almost half of the Liu family here this time. He has more than 50 people under him. Why does he need to use the entire town? The 3 guests are all here. We have enough people. There's no need to use the entire town, Lu Zhenzhen said curiously. Miss, the terrain of the snowfield is complicated. Having more people isn't necessarily useful. We have to find locals who are familiar with the terrain. Snow Lady's whereabouts are unpredictable. No matter how many people we have, it won't be enough to capture her alive. Otherwise, why would Master ask you to bring more people here? The old man analyzed. Since he asked me to come here, why didn't he wait for me to come before taking action? Lu Zhenzhen's tone was a little anxious. She had lost contact with her father for 3 hours. Why don't we look for her again? The elegant man continued. As Lu Zhenzhen talked with the people around her, her eyes would occasionally look at Li Daochong. This young man who appeared out of nowhere made her feel a little strange. You're from Shuangyuan town? Lu Zhenzhen asked. No. Li Daochong's face was indifferent as he replied. He turned around and was about to leave. What's with that attitude? Stop right there. Miss Liu hasn't finished asking, the elegant man snorted coldly. Li Daochong acted as if he didn't hear him. He didn't stop walking. The elegant man was annoyed. Just as he was about to stop Li Daochong, Lu Zhenzhen's wrist beeped. She looked down and cried out, It's a message from my father. When the elegant man heard this, he turned around and didn't chase after Li Daochong. Lu Zhenzhen's wristwatch projected a holographic image of a middle-aged man's upper body. The middle-aged man said, Zhenzhen, come to the northeast of Shuangyuan town. Snow Lady is here. Lu Xinxin's face lit up. She hurriedly said, Chu Lao, calculate the location. Let's go. Then, the group boarded the flying shuttles and was about to leave. However, as soon as they started, 3 bangs were heard. The spiritium engines of 3 of the flying shuttles had exploded. They fell to the ground and couldn't be started, including the one Lu Xinxin was in. Lu Xinxin impatiently got down from the flying shuttles. There were a total of 5 flying shuttles and 25 members. Of the 3 flying shuttles that suddenly broke down, one of them was a business car that could seat more than 10 people. The remaining 2 were just ordinary shuttles that could only carry 4 people. Lu Xinxin couldn't wait any longer. She wanted to take a few people and leave first, leaving the rest to wait in Shuangyuan town. However, Chu Lao said, Miss, to be on the safe side, it's better to bring bodyguards with you. Shuangyuan town hasn't been very peaceful recently. Lu Xinxin was in a dilemma. How are we going to take them without a car? A flying shuttle can only seat 4 people. There are so many people. Even if 2 shuttles are stuffed, they can't fit so many people. Chu Lao looked at Li Daochong, who had just walked out of the town and arrived in front of his flying shuttle. He said, That kid's flying shuttle is a cargo shuttle. It won't be a problem to take a dozen people. Lu Xinxin's eyes lit up. Just as she was about to ask Chu Lao to talk to the young man, Chu Lao appeared in front of Li Daochong, who was 100 meters away. Young man, do you want to make a fortune? Chu Lao asked Li Daochong with a smile. No, Li Daochong replied without even looking at Chu Lao. Chapter 257. These people were obviously from a large family, so Li Daochong wasn't interested in interacting with them. He had just sent a message to Tsing Jiao, asking her to send him the location of the mine. Tsing Jiao asked Li Daochong to wait for a moment. She wasn't sure of the exact location and was still looking for it. Therefore, Li Daochong wasn't interested in the old man's words at all. In fact, Li Daochong had also heard their conversation. There was no conclusion as to what kind of species the Snow Women were. It was said that they were a foreign race, a branch of the human race, but their genetic relationship was quite distant. However, Li Daochong had once seen another theory about the Snow Women in a book. It said that the Snow Women weren't of a foreign race, but a kind of nether beast. Wherever the Snow Women went, it would be a world of ice and snow. Even on a hot summer day, snow would fall from the sky, instantly entering winter. It was impossible for Li Daochong not to be curious about these creatures that weren't human, beast, or ghost. However, Li Daochong wanted to find the mine right now. He had a feeling that there was something in the mine. It was very likely that it was the cause of the Black Wrath spirit binding on so many people in the family. The Chu Lao didn't expect this young man to answer so straightforwardly. It seemed like he didn't care about money at all. Young man, your flying shuttle didn't cost more than 200,000 Federation coins when you bought it. I'll give you 2 million. How about you sell it to me? The Chu Lao didn't give up and directly said, I'm not selling it. Li Daochong refused. 2 million was really nothing to Li Daochong now. It couldn't even buy a bottle of 3-star spirit medicine. As for the materials for making spirit talismans, it was even more impossible to buy. 5 million, the Chu Lao continued to bid, looking at Li Daochong with a hint of mockery in his old eyes. The Chu Lao believed that no one would really refuse an opportunity to make a fortune. Even if they refused at the beginning, it was just to raise the price. Or they just didn't expect the amount of money. The young man in front of him most likely belonged to the latter. Judging from his clothes, he was not a rich man. He must not have expected that someone would pay such a high price for a second-hand flying shuttle. Not even for 50 million. Li Daochong frowned as he sat in the shuttle and replied with a bit of displeasure. Chu Lao was stunned once again. Then, he became a little angry. Young man, don't go too far. 5 million is a lot. It's enough for you to live a carefree life for a long time. 10 million is at most. Li Daochong glanced at the old man from the corner of his eyes. Wasn't it obvious enough? It had nothing to do with money. He was not selling. In a world of ice and snow, if one did not have the sword kinesis flight technique, flying shuttles were obviously the best means of transportation. At this time, Xing Jiao sent a message to Li Daochong, but she didn't have the exact location of the mine. She could only confirm that it was a few hundred kilometers northeast. Li Daochong frowned. Planet Qiyang was much bigger than Blue Bay Star. The Arctic Circle was vast and boundless. It would take a lot of time to find the target with only one direction. However, he had no other choice. He could only rely on himself. Li Daochong immediately started the flying shuttle and was about to leave. Chu Lao's turbid eyes revealed a trace of killing intent. There was no one within a few hundred kilometers of this place. If this kid was not willing to sell the shuttle, he might as well kill him and take the shuttle. No one would know. Chu Lao wanted to kill him, but in the end, he didn't do it. The young mistress had always disliked the old master's ruthless methods. As a result, the relationship between the father and daughter was not very good. Chu Lao didn't want to kill in front of the young mistress. More importantly, Planet Qiyang's local self-cultivator army commander's son, Chu Weibin, was also here. That kid had been begging Lu Xinjin for a period of time. If he killed in front of the local army commander's son, he would have to be careful in the future. If he offended the other party and this matter was exposed, he would become a wanted criminal. Chu Lao was in a dilemma. Seeing that the young man was about to leave, he anxiously took out a spiritual herb and said, "Young man, have you seen this before?" Li Daochong turned to look and said in surprise, "Fierce sungrass." Chu Lao smiled. "Kid, at least you know what's good for you. This 100-year-old fierce sungrass is my treasure. How about exchanging it for your flying shuttle?" 100-year-old fierce sungrass was worth at least 20 million Federation coins. Most of the time, it could not be bought. Li Daochong was a little tempted. He needed this to stabilize the spiritual sun lightning in his body. Li Daochong thought for a moment and said, "Give me this fierce sungrass. I can take you to the place you want to go." What? Chu Lao suspected that he had misheard. This kid was asking for a mile after taking an inch. He wanted to hire him as a driver for just a stalk of fierce sungrass? If you don't want to, then forget it. I have a use for the flying shuttle. I really can't exchange it. Li Daochong said regretfully. Although he really wanted the fierce sungrass, finding the mine was more important. Whether or not he could break through to the foundation establishment stage in a month depended on whether or not he could find something on this trip. Li Daochong could slowly find the fierce sungrass in the future. He was not in a hurry. Chu Lao turned to look at the young lady behind him, who had an expectant look on her face. He then turned to look at the indifferent young man. Chu Lao gritted his teeth in hatred. He forced a smile on his face and said, "Kid, you win. Deal." Chu Lao turned around and waved for Lu Xinjin to bring the people over. Li Daochong said unhurriedly, "Why aren't you giving me the fierce sungrass?" Chu Lao stared at him and said, "Kid, I'll naturally give it to you when we arrive at the destination. Do you think an old man like me would trick a young kid like you?" Li Daochong curled his lips. "That's hard to say. Give me the fierce sungrass first, otherwise the deal is off." Chu Lao's old face was extremely gloomy. He wanted nothing more than to kill this kid, but he couldn't do it. The young lady and Chu Weibin had already walked over. Li Daochong had already sensed that this old man wanted to kill him. He wanted nothing more than for him to make a move. If that happened, then don't blame him for being ruthless. Chu Lao was in the late stage of the qi gathering stage. The spiritual energy in his body was dense. He was a qi practitioner and was proficient in the art of divination. He had assisted 3 generations of the Lu clan and was a very famous local feng shui master. Li Daochong didn't care about Chu Lao's ashen face. He immediately started the flying shuttle, looking like he was ready to leave at any time. Chu Lao's spiritual energy couldn't be suppressed. He really wanted to beat someone up. Chu Lao, what's wrong with you? Is it too cold? Why are you shivering? Lu Zhenzhen's voice came from behind. Chu Lao sullenly handed the fierce sun grass to Li Daochong and said, "Kid, you're too greedy. Be careful you don't get hit in the back." Li Daochong took the fierce sun grass and immediately put it into his storage bag. As for Chu Lao's words, he didn't even listen. Soon, more than 10 men in suits sat on the flying shuttle. Chu Lao, Lu Zhenzhen and the elegant man also sat on the shuttle. This was a cargo flying shuttle. The space wasn't small, but it wasn't as comfortable. There were only 5 seats, and the rest were empty. People could either stand or sit on the bottom of the shuttle. Although Chu Lao gave the fierce sun grass to Li Daochong, he didn't want to. The old man had already thought it through. When they arrived at their destination, he would take this kid to a place where no one was around and then snatch the fierce sun grass back. Li Daochong drove the flying shuttle and soared into the sky. He sped in the direction Chu Lao gave him, which happened to be the northeast direction he wanted to go. Half an hour later, they arrived at the sky above a snow-covered mountain range. At a glance, it was still snow, and there was no sign of people. "Land in the valley ahead." Chu Lao pointed ahead. Li Daochong nodded and then drove the flying shuttle in the direction of the valley. Li Daochong spread out his telekinesis. His eyes moved slightly, and he sensed a trace of death energy. Not only that, but there was also an extremely unstable spatial fluctuation below this area. As soon as they entered the valley, there was a cave at the foot of a towering mountain. There were a few temporary houses around it, and the cave was supported by metal pillars. Outside the cave, there was a small flying shuttle shaped like a ginkgo tree. Lu Zhenzhen saw it and shouted, "Grandpa Chu, it's the ginkgo tree." The ginkgo tree was the personal flying shuttle of the Lu family head, Lu Xingyuan. Chu Lao let out a sigh of relief. He had finally found his master. Li Daochong got off the flying shuttle, and Lu Zhenzhen was the first to rush out of the car and run towards the flying shuttle. Li Daochong suddenly felt that something was wrong. The space around them seemed to be unstable. Chu Lao also felt that something was wrong. He moved and pulled Lu Zhenzhen, who had already run more than 10 meters away. "Young miss, be careful. There's something strange here." As soon as he said that, the flying shuttle began to disintegrate. It quickly disappeared into nothingness as if it had never existed. Lu Zhenzhen was stunned. What happened? Chu Lao took out a compass from his bag, his old face uncertain. "Young miss, the magnetic field here is very chaotic. This should be the place where the master sent the last message, but I can't calculate the exact location." Beep. Lu Zhenzhen's wristwatch received another message. The image projected was the head of the Lu family, Lu Xingyuan. "Zhenzhen, run." Chapter 258. Almost at the same time, a stream of light flashed in the cave, and then a colorful light shot out from inside. Li Daochong's pupils suddenly shrank, and a chill rose from the bottom of his heart. It had been a long time since he felt such a strong sense of crisis. The light beam shot out of the cave like a spiritual light cannon. Whoosh! Everyone was enveloped in it. Li Daochong felt very similar to when he was on tongue-pulling planet. It was as if the entire space was about to be torn apart. The difference was that the space around tongue-pulling planet was chaotic, as if it was about to explode. The spatial fluctuations produced at this moment were equally strong, but they were not disorderly. Instead, they spread out in an orderly manner. It seemed to be controlled by some powerful existence. Everyone, including Li Daochong, had no power to resist at all. They were instantly enveloped by the light beam. Everything in front of them was shrouded in light, and nothing could be seen. A few seconds later, the light beam disappeared, and everyone was baffled. The light in front of Li Daochong disappeared, and the scene in front of him made his heart skip a beat. Shuangyuan Town? Li Daochong stood on the main road of Shuangyuan town that he had just left. It was very lively around him, and people were coming and going. It was not an empty town at all. What was going on? Li Daochong frowned and watched a couple hugging each other pass by him. The woman was beautiful, and the man was handsome. The couple seemed to notice Li Daochong's gaze. The man glared at Li Daochong angrily. "What are you looking at?" Li Daochong curled his lips and looked away. It was not an illusion, it was real. "Aren't you wearing such revealing clothes for people to see?" A murmur came from behind Li Daochong. Li Daochong turned around and saw a wretched-looking man standing behind him. The man who was hugging the beauty was not talking to him. Li Daochong glanced around. Lu Zhenzhen and the others were walking around the street, and they were all confused. Or was it an illusion? Li Daochong was puzzled. A light flashed in his eyes, and he spread out his mental power. The space here was very strange. There seemed to be two overlapping layers. Spatial overlap? Li Daochong's pupils shrank. If that was the case, wouldn't they be trapped here? There was indeed something strange about Shuangyuan town. Although Li Daochong couldn't see anything when the light rushed out, his psyche power caught a terrifying death chi in an instant. Li Daochong almost suffered internal injuries from the pressure of the death aura. He felt as if he had fallen into an abyss of Hades, unable to extricate himself. Li Daochong didn't know what that light was, but he was sure that it wasn't natural. There was something wrong with Planet Crimson Sunday. Now was not the time to worry about the terrifying death aura. They had to figure out what was going on. Chu Lao's fingers quickly fiddled as he calculated. His old face was filled with uncertainty. "Grandpa Chu, why are we back in Shuangyuan town? And why are there so many people here all of a sudden?" Lu Zhenzhen was baffled. "It's a bad omen," Chu Lao said with a solemn expression. "What do you mean?" Chu Weibin asked nervously. "We've been teleported into an overlapping space," Chu Lao replied with a pale face. "Overlapping space?" Lu Zhenzhen was puzzled. "That's right. To put it simply, we're now in our own space, but we're also in another spacetime," Chu Lao explained. "Another spacetime? How can such a thing happen in this world?" Lu Zhenzhen was shocked, and her delicate body trembled. "What about my father? Master should be trapped here too, but I didn't sense the spiritual power of the jade pendant on his body." "He might be farther away from us," Chu Lao replied. "What should we do now?" Lu Zhenzhen panicked. A few days ago, her father received news that a snow woman had been found here, so he immediately gathered people to come and capture her. It was rumored that drinking the tears of the snow woman could prolong one's life by 100 years and preserve one's youthful appearance. But how could a rumor be believed? Lu Zhenzhen strongly objected, but her father had already made up his mind. Lu Xingyuan contracted a strange disease a year ago, and he aged rapidly. There was no cure for it. The doctor said that he had at most 5 years left to live, unless he drank the tears of the snow woman. Lu Xingyuan racked his brains to find the whereabouts of the snow woman. At first, he didn't believe it, but later, he contacted a few cultivators and spent a lot of money to finally confirm that the snow woman existed in this world. Furthermore, there might be one on Planet Crimson Sunday. Thus, Lu Xingyuan mobilized people to search everywhere, but there was no news until a few days ago, when a cultivator from the north said that there was a snow woman near Shuangyuan town and that she had appeared recently. Lu Xingyuan immediately gave that person a few million Federation coins and came here in a rush. A day ago, he sent a message to Lu Zhenzhen and asked her to bring people over to help. In the end, Lu Zhenzhen brought people to Shuangyuan town and found that it was an empty town. They searched everywhere but to no avail, so they returned. Later, they met the strange young man, received a message from her father, and rushed to the place where the message was sent. Then, they encountered a strange light and arrived here. Li Daochong quietly sensed the spatial fluctuations around him, but he didn't find anything special. Just as he withdrew his telekinesis, a faint aura of death was detected. Li Daocheng's peripheral vision flashed, and he glanced at the door of a shop more than 10 meters to his right. A man stood at the door of the shop and looked at the display on the counter. However, he looked a little different from the others around him, and he seemed out of place. He was actually looking at Lu Xinjun. He could see Lu Xinjun? Li Daocheng found it strange, but he maintained his original posture and only observed the man from the corner of his eye. Chu Lao was still calculating, and the compass in his hand kept changing directions. Suddenly, he said, "Miss, the compass shows that we might be able to get out of here in this direction." As he spoke, the Chu Lao placed the compass on the ground and muttered something. Then, the spirit energy in his finger moved and touched the compass. The compass rose into the air and floated in the air, slowly flying in the southwest direction. Li Daocheng glanced at the Chu Lao. This old man was quite capable. The direction he had sensed was the same as the one he had sensed. The spatial fluctuations in the southwest direction were clearly much more stable than in the other directions. However, Li Daocheng had no intention of leaving. He could sense that the aura of death around him was gradually increasing. The man who was occasionally looking at Lu Xinjun was Dark Ghost in disguise. Li Daocheng was only waiting for this group to leave so that he could act alone. His sharp spatial senses allowed Li Daocheng to easily sense stable spatial positions. Since he could enter, he would definitely be able to leave. Li Daocheng's nervousness had already calmed down under his continuous perception. The terrifying aura of death was not here, or rather, it was not on planet Crimson Sun, but somewhere very far away. It was only using its powerful death energy to affect a certain space on planet Crimson Sunday. Li Daocheng guessed that some powerful dark ghost was trying to open a dimensional door to allow more dark ghosts to enter planet Red Sun, based on the history books he had read. Li Daocheng did not know why Dark Ghost had chosen planet Crimson Sun, but he was sure that planet Crimson Sun had something that Dark Ghost wanted. Otherwise, it would not have gone to such great lengths to open a spatial door on planet Crimson Sunday. It was not easy to open a spatial door to the Hades. At the very least, it required a grand wizard with the strength of a soul formation cultivator to do so. Even so, it would take a long time to open a small gap, and it would take even longer to prevent the Shenghua Federation's self-cultivator army from noticing. Chu Lao had just taken 2 steps when he turned around and said, "Kid, you walk in front." Li Daocheng's expression turned cold. He was about to refuse when the man in the form of Dark Ghost in his peripheral vision disappeared. The aura of death that had just surged out also disappeared. Li Daocheng was puzzled. It disappeared all of a sudden? Li Daocheng was puzzled when he saw a wisp of black chi enter Chu Lao's compass and disappear. Li Daocheng did not pay much attention to the compass. Only now did he realize that there was something strange about it. Chapter 259. As the suited man spoke, he walked in front of Li Daocheng and reached out to grab Li Daocheng. Li Daocheng's gaze was extremely cold, and he was somewhat angry. Just as he was about to make a move, a black light flashed and hit the suited man. With a muffled groan, the suited man flew backward and landed on the ground more than 10 meters away. He rolled a few times and his body shriveled at a speed visible to the naked eye, turning into a dried corpse. "What's that?" Chu Weibin cried out in alarm and looked around vigilantly. "Everyone, be careful. There's a vampire," Chu Lao shouted. Vampires were an extremely special existence among dark ghosts. They didn't suck souls or life force, only blood. Moreover, they evolved in a one-way manner and were of the same origin. There were vampires among almost all levels of dark ghosts. As soon as he finished speaking, another suited man fell and turned into a dried corpse. The death aura on the vampire's body was extremely weak and almost undetectable. Even with Li Daocheng's extremely sensitive death aura perception and the assistance of the blood-boiling level-up device, It was difficult to pinpoint the vampire's specific location. Chu Lao took out a soul-subduing flag from the bag hanging on his shoulder and threw it out. "Young miss, run quickly. This vampire's soul has already awakened. It's a great ghost vampire." When the group heard Chu Lao's shout, they immediately broke into a run. Follow the compass. Chu Lao protected Lu Xinjin and followed the compass in the southwest direction. Li Daochong's original intention was to act alone, but the compass in Chu Lao's hand was strange. It looked a bit like a ghost rearing compass. Li Daochong immediately followed, and the vampire hiding in the dark seemed to be following them as well. After running for more than 10 kilometers, they left Shuangyuan town and entered a vast snowfield. Along the way, another 3 suited men were devoured by vampires. Li Daochong caught a trace of death aura several times. Just as he was about to attack, the death aura disappeared without a trace. Vampires were the dark ghosts that moved the most erratically. Even Jindan cultivators found it difficult to accurately determine their location. Li Daochong could only lock onto the target for 1 or 2 seconds. Chu Lao protected Lu Xinjin as he watched the bodyguards behind him fall down one by one. He knew that it was not a good idea to continue running like this. He put on a stern face and no longer hid anything. He took out a transparent screen from his hanging bag and threw it into the air. A 10-meter-long and 5-meter-wide barrier was formed. Half of the people were protected inside, while the other half were isolated because they were too far away. Li Daochong happened to be within the range. The 8 men in suits outside the barrier looked terrified. They tried their best to rush into the barrier, but they were sent flying by the impact. 3 dark red phantoms flashed past, and screams could be heard continuously. In the blink of an eye, the bodyguards who were isolated outside were all turned into dried corpses. The faces of the people inside the barrier were all pale. Looking at the miserable deaths of their companions, they felt heartache, but there was nothing they could do. It seemed easy for Chu Lao to support the barrier, but it actually consumed a lot of energy. He sat down cross-legged and his breathing was chaotic. "Miss, I need to rest for a day. This barrier can last for 3 days and 3 nights. As long as I don't go out, the dark ghosts can't break it." After speaking, Chu Lao was about to enter a meditative state. "Chu Lao, I have a golden yang pill here. Take it. It will help you recover and consolidate your cultivation." Chu Weibin took out a golden elixir and handed it to Chu Lao. Hearing that it was a golden yang pill, Chu Lao's turbid eyes lit up. This was a good thing. It was sold for 5 million Federation coins on the market, and even if one could buy it, the quality would be average. The one that Chu Weibin gave him was crystal clear. It was obviously a top-grade elixir made by a first-class alchemist. Chu Lao did not hesitate. He took the golden yang pill and swallowed it. He immediately closed his eyes and entered a meditative state as if he was sleeping. Li Daochong stood at the edge of the barrier and looked at the flickering dark red mist outside. His telekinesis was still unable to lock onto it. These grand ghost-level vampires were not a threat to Li Daochong, but Li Daochong did not dare to walk out of the barrier. He felt that these vampires were just sentinels. The truly powerful dark ghosts had yet to appear. Li Daochong looked up. Chu Lao's compass was floating at the top of the center of the barrier. It was the supporting point of the entire barrier. Every once in a while, the compass would emit energy that flowed through the entire barrier. Li Daochong then sat down cross-legged and focused on sensing the spatial fluctuations outside. Time passed little by little. More and more vampires gathered outside the barrier. The dark red mist flashed in different directions and surrounded the barrier. A few of the thirsty vampires could not hold themselves back and rammed into the barrier, trying to break it open. However, the moment they hit the barrier, they disappeared and turned into dark red mist that was absorbed into the barrier. After that, these vampires did not dare to approach the barrier again. They gathered in the distance and waited. Half a day passed quickly. The endless waiting and the fear of the unknown made Lu Xinjin and the others exhausted. Chu Weibin's mood began to become unstable. He regretted following them. If he lost his life, the cost of picking up girls would be too high. Chu Weibin was at the early stage of the qi gathering. His cultivation was not weak, and he had a military background. His temperament could be considered calm. However, in the face of so many vampires and being trapped in an unheard of overlapping space, some of the things that were usually hidden because of his family background and talent gradually emerged. The fear in Chu Weibin's heart grew stronger. He was very uneasy, and his refined face became more irritated. In fact, Chu Weibin could not endure much hardship. After half a day, he was hungry and said to a bodyguard beside him, "Yongzi, take out the food and distribute it to everyone." Yongzi was the leader of these bodyguard. He was also at the early stage of the qi gathering. After entering the barrier, he had been observing the situation outside. He held several talismans in his hand and a long sword that emitted a red light. After Chu Weibin spoke, Yongzi immediately took out a cloth and spread it on the ground. He then took out a lot of food from his storage bag. The bodyguards' stomachs were already growling from hunger. Seeing the food, their eyes lit up. Danger lurked in all directions, but in front of delicious food, these bodyguards could not care less. They first had to fill their stomach. Even if they died, they wanted to be full ghosts. No one wanted to be a hungry ghost. Lu Zhenjin was also very hungry. The group of people immediately gathered together and wolfed down the food. Li Daochong sat alone at the edge of the barrier with his eyes closed. No one cared about him. "Do you want to give that kid some food? He hasn't eaten anything." A female bodyguard whispered to her companion next to her. After Lu Zhenjin heard this, her expression was indifferent. At this time, she was in a situation where she could not find her father. She had nowhere to vent her emotions. Her young mistemper flared up. "We don't know how many days we will be trapped here. This kid's origin is unknown. Don't waste it," Lu Zhenjin said coldly. Chu Weibin rolled his eyes and leaned close to Lu Zhenjin's ear and whispered, "Zhenjin, do you remember when Chu Lao asked this kid to lead the way? I think it's better to give him some food. When Chu Lao adjusts his breathing, it might be useful. If he starves for too long, I'm afraid he won't even have the strength to walk." Lu Zhenjin thought about it and felt that Chu Weibin was right. Only then did she reluctantly pick up a piece of jerky and walk towards Li Daochong. "Hey, here you go." Lu Zhenjin held the jerky in front of Li Daochong and called out stiffly. There was no response. Lu Zhenjin said again, but there was still no response. Then she frowned and said unhappily, "Good intentions are taken as ill intent. If you don't want it, then forget it. I'll just let you starve to death." Li Daochong did not ignore Lu Zhenjin, but he was concentrating on using his telekinesis to capture the vampire's tracks at the moment and could not be distracted. However, Li Daochong heard the conversation between these guys. Even if he could speak, he would not accept it. After half a day, Li Daochong had some insight. At first, he could only lock on for 1 or 2 seconds. Now, he could last for more than 5 seconds. Li Daochong had just grasped some key points. If he was distracted, it was likely that all his previous efforts would be wasted. However, in the eyes of others, Li Daochong was clearly putting on airs. "The young miss personally gave you food. It's fine if you don't eat it, but you don't even say a word. Who do you think you are?" Chu Weibin was worried that he could not vent his emotions. At this time, he saw that Li Daochong actually ignored Lu Zhenjin and continued, "Kid, you appeared alone in Shuangyuan town and happened to run into us. I think your identity is very suspicious. Since we met you, things have been getting stranger and stranger. It's said that some people in the Federation are controlled by Hades and have become Hades' lackeys and puppets. We don't know anything about you. To be on the safe side, can you take a look at your identity information?" Li Daochong sat cross-legged with his eyes closed. He still did not respond, but his eyebrows twitched slightly. Chu Weibin saw that this kid still did not speak and was annoyed. He got up and walked up to Li Daochong, ready to attack. Just as Chu Weibin reached out, Li Daochong's eyes suddenly opened. Chu Weibin was startled and subconsciously took a step back. "Go away," Li Daochong said coldly. "Stinking brat, do you have a guilty conscience?" Chu Weibin's face darkened. No one on planet Crimson Sun had dared to speak to him like this. Even powerful cultivators had to treat Chu Weibin with respect. As the son of a local army commander on a cultivation planet, there was no need to talk about his status. More importantly, Chu Weibin's father, Chu Xingyang, was a late-stage Foundation establishment cultivator. On a fourth-grade cultivation planet, he could definitely be considered a first-rate expert, not to mention his power. "Weibin, forget it. If he doesn't appreciate it, then let him be. Don't worry about him." Lu Zhenjin did not want to cause a conflict and disturb Chu Lao's breathing. Whether or not they could get out of here depended on Chu Lao. If this stinking brat disturbed Chu Lao's breathing, it was not worth it. "Stinking brat, don't follow us later. Go wherever you want to go." Chu Weibin threw down a harsh sentence and turned to leave. Li Daochong's expression remained the same. He closed his eyes again and continued his capturing practice. At night, Lu Zhenjin and the others gathered together to sleep. 2 bodyguards were on guard duty every 3 hours. It was very safe within the barrier. The only person on guard duty was Li Daochong. The flow of time in the overlapping space was not the same as in normal space. It was sometimes fast and sometimes slow. The sun was not visible in the sky, but there was plenty of light all around. No one knew where the light came from. 1 or 2 hours was the cycle of day and night. 1 or 2 hours was the cycle of night. 1 or more hours was the cycle of night. In short, there was no pattern. Li Daochong could only rely on the display on his wristwatch to estimate the time. The night was very long. 15 hours later, the environment returned to daytime. Chu Lao's breathing was half a day longer than expected. When he opened his eyes, Lu Zhenjin and Chu Weibin nervously leaned over. "Chu Lao, how is your breathing? Is the golden yang pill effective?" Chu Weibin asked carefully. This old man was everyone's pillar of support. Whether or not they could get out of here depended on him. Chu Weibin also realized this when he gave out the golden yang pill. "I'm recovering well. Young Master Chu, was that golden yang pill provided by the military?" Chu Lao was in high spirits. "My father gave it to me," Chu Weibin replied. Chapter 260. Chu Lao returned to his peak state and was in high spirits. Chu Weibin's golden yang pill was obviously not an ordinary item. There were at least dozens of dark red fog scattered outside, and each of them was a vampire. So many vampires were enough to flatten a small town of thousands of people. However, in Chu Lao's eyes, these vampires were nothing, and it was not difficult for him to eliminate them with his means. Chu Lao drove the compass, pinched his fingers to calculate, and then removed the barrier. The moment the barrier was removed, the flickering dark red fog immediately closed in, and the air was filled with a bloodthirsty smell. Lu Zhenjin's pretty face revealed a horrified expression. Seeing these ghosts made her heart tremble. Chu Weibin inadvertently stood in the middle of the crowd, ensuring that he would not be attacked in the first place. Li Daochong's expression was calm as usual. After more than a day of practice, he could already lock the vampire's movements in 10 seconds. 10 seconds was enough for Li Daochong to kill the vampires, but Li Daochong's target was not the vampires. Killing so many of them together would not increase his spiritual qi by much. Li Daochong looked towards the southwest, where there were 2 unusual death qi. One of them was cold and the other was bloody. Strangely, these 2 death qi were in a state of confrontation. Li Daochong did not intend to follow this group of people, but just as he was about to leave, the compass in Chu Lao's hand burst out with a shock wave. Bang! The shock wave spread out like an explosion, and all the dark red fog in its path was destroyed. Dozens of vampires were instantly killed, and the dark red fog was completely absorbed into the compass. What a powerful magic weapon! Li Daocheng's eyes revealed a look of surprise. He had never seen such a powerful magic weapon. Chu Lao's cultivation was only at the late stage of the qi-gathering realm, but he held a powerful magic weapon, and his strength was higher than his cultivation. Lu Zhenzhen and Chu Weibin's worried expressions disappeared in an instant. Chu Lao, why didn't you use such a powerful move earlier? Why did you let us be trapped here for more than a day? Chu Weibin praised with some dissatisfaction. He didn't want to stay in this damned place for even a moment longer. Young Master Chu, there's something you don't know. Before I came here, my old illness acted up and I couldn't use this move at all. It was your Jinyang pill that allowed me to recover to my peak state. Chu Lao was not angry at Chu Weibin's attitude at all. Chu Weibin was the son of the Legion commander, and he could not afford to offend him. Once again, the compass successfully attracted Li Daocheng's attention. He looked into the distance, but in the end, he still followed Lu Zhenzhen and the others forward. The two death auras in the southwest direction were getting more and more intense. As they got closer, Chu Lao could also sense the collision of the two death auras. Chu Lao frowned. Young mistress, this old man sensed the Snow Lady's aura. It seems she's being controlled by the dark ghost. And Master is also there. Lu Zhenzhen's cultivation was only at the 5th level of qi refinement, so she naturally couldn't sense the movements in the distance. When she heard Chu Lao say this, her face lit up. Did you find my father? Chu Lao nodded uncertainly. Should be. Then, the group began to quicken their pace toward the southwest. Li Daocheng followed about 10 meters behind them, neither close nor far. Li Daocheng really wanted to figure out what that compass was. How could there be a magic treasure that was so similar to his hot-blooded upgrader? It could absorb death aura while killing the dark ghost. He just didn't know if the death aura absorbed by the compass would be transformed or have other uses. Li Daocheng was very curious. This was the first time he had seen such a functional magic treasure. Chu Lao, that kid has been following us. Didn't you ask him to lead the way? Do you still need him now? Chu Weibin turned to look at Li Daocheng. Young Master Chu, why do you think this old man asked him to follow us? Chu Lao's old face revealed a sinister smile. Chu Weibin nodded knowingly. Chu Lao, this kid's origins are unknown. Could he be a puppet possessed by the dark ghost? Chu Lao shook his head. Young Master Chu, this old man has already probed this kid. He doesn't have any death aura, so he's not a puppet. Although his appearance in Shuangyuan Town is a bit strange, there have been many people coming to Shuangyuan Town recently. A long time ago, there was a rumor that there was a spirit vein mine near Shuangyuan Town. Many people came to mine for gold. Chu Weibin's expression froze. His eyes lit up. Spirit vein mine? Is there really such a place? Chu Lao smiled and said, Of course not. This old man once heard that the Yin family spent a lot of effort to find it, but they found nothing. Even the Yin family of the Scarlet Sun planet's 4 great families couldn't find it. Young Master Chu, do you think there really is such a place? Chu Weibin's expression was disappointed. He had taken it seriously. If there really was a spirit vein mine, they would be rich. After an hour, a strange mountain range appeared in front of everyone. This mountain was faintly discernible and was moving slowly. It looked very unreal. There was a hole at the foot of the mountain. It was bottomless and emitted a terrifying death aura. Li Daocheng and Chu Lao sensed that the stable space was at the top of this mountain. In other words, as long as they could climb to the top of the mountain, they should be able to walk out of this overlapping space. Just as Chu Lao was about to tell everyone to get ready, the moving mountain suddenly disappeared. Li Daocheng's pupils shrank. He had a bad feeling about this. The mountain disappeared, and the death aura around them soared into the sky. Several flying shuttles and a flying space shuttle appeared in front of the group. This was where they had been attacked by the strange light. The cave that was emitting the strange light was right in front of them. Chu Lao's face suddenly showed a trace of doubt. Then, there were cries for help and screams coming from the cave. Then, more than 10 people with panicked expressions ran out of the cave. Lu Zhenzhen saw her father among the crowd at a glance. She cried out, "Dad!" As soon as the voice faded away, a 3-story tall rotting dragon rushed out of the cave with heavy steps. With every step it took, the ground shook. Chu Lao's expression turned serious. A nether beast. Ghost beasts were formed after being contaminated by death aura, while nether beasts were dead beasts born in the Hades. They were much higher level than ghost beasts and were much stronger. A decaying dragon was equivalent to a baleful ghost-level nether ghost. Chu Lao, quickly think of a way to save my dad. Lu Zhenzhen was about to cry. When Chu Weibin saw the decaying dragon, he knew something was wrong. He shouted at the bodyguards beside him, "What are you standing there for? Hurry up and save him." More than a dozen bodyguards were frightened at this time. They only came back to their senses when they heard Chu Weibin's shout. As the head of the bodyguards, Yuko did not retreat at this time. He shouted and rushed over first. Lu Xingyuan and the others who had escaped from the cave saw their daughter arrive with reinforcements. Their faces were filled with joy at first, but Lu Xingyuan quickly realized that something was wrong. He shouted, "Zhenzhen, run! Don't worry about me. There's a spatial tunnel in the cave that connects to the Hades. The Nether Ghosts are about to invade planet Scarlet Sunday." Yuko and the other bodyguards raised their weapons and attacked the decaying dragon. Yuko's long sword slashed viciously at the decaying dragon's neck. Clang! There was a crisp sound. Yuko's wrist went numb. The decaying dragon's rotten skin was harder than steel. The blade was chipped, but it did not leave a single mark on the decaying dragon's neck. The decaying dragon swept its tail, and the bones of 3 bodyguards were shattered. It bit down on one of the bodyguards and swallowed him whole. In the blink of an eye, 4 bodyguards were dead. They posed no threat to the decaying dragon. However, their sacrifice allowed Lu Xingyuan and the others to escape from the cave. In fact, most of the people who had escaped were bodyguards as well. However, they were clearly scared out of their wits. They only cared about escaping, and did not even care about their master, Lu Xingyuan. Suddenly, a dark red mist swept past them from the side. Of the group of people who were running away, 3 of them collapsed and turned into dried corpses. Their blood essence was sucked dry in an instant. Chu Lao was shocked. A baleful ghost-level vampire. One decaying dragon was troublesome enough. Now there was another baleful ghost-level vampire. Chu Lao, who had been very calm just a moment ago, revealed a look of shock and fear. Lu Zhenzhen saw that her father was about to reach her when a baleful ghost-level vampire appeared. She grabbed Chu Weibin in fright. "Weibin, save my father." Chu Weibin was not in the mood to save his father. Lu Zhenzhen grabbed him and flung him away. "Zhenzhen, I'm sorry. There's nothing I can do." Lu Zhenzhen looked at Chu Weibin as if he was a stranger. Then, she took out a long sword and rushed toward her father. Chu Lao saw this and hurriedly followed with his compass. The 2 spirit talismans in his hands were already shot out. Bang bang! The spirit talismans hit the dark red mist and exploded. The seemingly powerful spirit talisman explosion only slowed down the dark red mist's movement speed. In that instant, the dark red mist revealed its true form. Within the mist was a terrifying bug-like object. Lu Xingyuan stumbled over to Lu Zhenzhen and grabbed his daughter's hand. "Run! Planet Qiyang is done for. We have to leave here and go to another planet." Lu Zhenzhen's face was pale. She broke free from her father's hand and looked at the bodyguards who were fighting the rotting dragon behind them. "Dad, what about them?" Lu Xingyuan did not even look behind him. He said anxiously, "We don't have time to think about that. Didn't we spend money to make them work for us? Now is the time for them to repay us." Lu Zhenzhen looked at the bodyguards falling behind her but was unwilling to leave. Yongzi had been with her for many years and had always been loyal to her. 3 years ago, when someone had tried to kidnap her, Yongzi had risked his life to save her. Although Lu Zhenzhen had a bit of a Missy's temper, she was not a bad person. She was unwilling to leave her subordinates behind. Missy, leave with Master first. I'm still here. I'll take Yongzi and chase after you and Master, Chu Lao advised. Almost at the same time, Yongzi, who was fighting the rotting dragon not far away, shouted, Missy, leave first. Lu Zhenzhen bit her lower lip and turned to run. However, just as the father and daughter were running away, there was a muffled sound behind them. Then, a figure flew backward like a cannonball. With a loud thud, it landed in front of the father and daughter. It was a corpse. It was Yongzi. His body was twisted and his neck was turned 180 degrees. His eyes were wide open in disbelief. He had died a horrible death. Yongzi was an early-stage qi refiner. He was definitely one of the top experts among the ordinary people on planet Crimson Sunday. However, he was like an ant in front of the rotting dragon. Bastard, bastard! Lu Zhenzhen cursed loudly in grief and anger. Chu Weibin did not need anyone to say anything. He had already run for his life. Lu Xingyuan did not care about his daughter's loss of control. He pulled her along and continued running. Almost everyone was running away with their backs facing the rotting dragon. However, a thin figure was slowly walking in the opposite direction from everyone else. The moment Li Daochong appeared in the cave, he sensed that there was a malicious spirit-level vampire nearby. He had been trying to lock onto the vampire's whereabouts, but he had been unable to do so. Only now did he manage to lock onto his target. Once he did, it would be time for Li Daochong to make his move. Lu Zhenzhen looked at Li Daochong, who was walking in front of her, in shock. She smiled bleakly. Kid, are you scared out of your wits? Run in the other direction. Li Daochong's gaze was fixed in a certain direction. He did not even look at Lu Zhenzhen. As for what she had said, he did not hear a single thing. Bang! 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 After a series of violent collisions, the Chu Lao was sent flying. Although he was still standing, there was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. Lu Xingyuan shouted at the Chu Lao. Chu Lao, let's run. The rotting dragon is only the mount of that existence in the cave. The 3 honorable guests should be dead by now. If not for the Snow Lady, we would not have been able to escape. However, the Chu Lao did not seem to hear him. He stood rooted to the ground as if he had been petrified. His eyes were wide open as he looked behind Lu Xingyuan. The unfamiliar youth was holding a dark green saber. With one slash, the rotting dragon's tail was cut off. How is this possible? Chapter 261. Li Daochong did not hold back when facing the rotten dragon. Song Inc. used the 4th layer of the 9-split saber technique, the heaven-shattering slash. Although the rotten dragon was powerful, in front of Li Daochong, it was just a huge underworld lizard. How could the heaven-grade weapon Song Inc. be compared to other weapons? With a single slash, it chopped off the rotten dragon's tail. The rotten dragon let out an earth-shattering roar. Its eyes shot out a blood-red light as it angrily looked at the ant who had chopped off its tail. Chu Lao's old face froze as he stared blankly at this scene. Even if he cracked his head open, he would never have thought that this strange young man who had been following him would have such a powerful strength. Chu Lao could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. His wrinkled face revealed a bitter smile. He had actually wanted to take back the intense sungrass that he had given away. Just from this slash, Chu Lao knew that he had been thinking too much. Just as he was about to snatch it back, his old life would have been gone. Lu Zhenzhen's small mouth opened so wide that it could fit an entire orange. In her eyes, this strange young man was at most a young boy who had come down from the mountains to broaden his horizons. How could she have imagined that this young man would be so powerful? Even Chu Lao could not deal with the rotten dragon. He had actually chopped off its tail with a single slash. Lu Xingyuan, who had been in a state of panic, was also stunned. It must be known that the strongest guest elder by his side, Elder Wang, had only lasted for a minute before being defeated by the rotten dragon. Elder Wang's strength was comparable to Chu Lao's. In terms of close combat strength, he was far superior to Chu Lao. Elder Wang was at the late stage of the Qi-gathering realm. What was this kid's cultivation level? Foundation establishment? How was that possible? He looked less than 20 years old. Lu Xingyuan forgot to run away. He looked at Li Daochong, who was confronting the rotten dragon, with a shocked expression. Zhenzhen, is he the bodyguard you hired? Lu Xingyuan suddenly remembered that this young man came with his daughter and asked. No, I don't know him. Lu Zhenzhen shook her head with a wooden expression. You don't know him? If I don't know him, why would he be with you? Lu Xingyuan was confused. Master, we met him in Shuangyuan town. At that time, 3 of our shuttles were broken. This kid was driving a cargo shuttle, so I asked him to take us to you, Chu Lao explained from the side. Lu Xingyuan still wanted to say something, but once he opened his mouth, he couldn't close it. The young man's body suddenly emitted a terrifying spiritual aura pressure. Close to foundation establishment. Peak of the Qi-gathering realm, Chu Lao exclaimed. How old is he? Lu Xingyuan asked. Even his tone was a little different. It was slightly distorted and trembling. But it wasn't fear, it was disbelief. Lu Xingyuan had seen several of the powerful elites of the Red Sun planet. Some of them were at the peak of the Qi-gathering stage, but their Ling Qi was far from being as thick and solid as this strange young man in front of him. If he hadn't sensed it at close range, he would have mistaken it for the Ling Qi emitted by a foundation establishment stage cultivator. Chu Weibin, who had fled the furthest, also stopped and looked behind him. His face, which was slightly distorted from fear, no longer had a scholarly look. When he saw Li Daochong cut off the tail of the rotten dragon, his face became even more distorted. As the son of the Legion commander, Chu Weibin had seen many cultivators since he was young, and the young man in front of him gave him the same feeling as those cultivators. Chu Weibin slapped his own head. Damn it, why didn't I think of that? How could a little kid appear here alone without any support? Chu Weibin recalled what he had said to the young man yesterday, and was secretly regretting it. If that kid was really a cultivator and held a grudge against him, even his father would have a hard time protecting him. Li Daochong naturally didn't know what the people behind him were thinking, and he didn't need to know. His telekinesis was locked onto the malicious ghost-level vampire, but his eyes were fixed on the rotten dragon. If it was just a rotten dragon, Li Daochong would have already killed it, but the hidden vampire was moving at this moment. Li Daochong didn't dare to be careless. If he was pierced by the vampire's blood-drinking needle, it wouldn't be fun. Li Daochong believed that the blood-drinking needle wouldn't react to the blood-drinking needle, and he would definitely be injured. Li Daochong held the Tsang ink tightly and waited for an opportunity. The rotten dragon didn't attack under the control of the vampire. Chu Lao, have you seen that kid before? After Lu Xingyuan confirmed that he had never seen this kid before, he asked Chu Lao, who was beside him. Master, this old man hasn't seen him before. He shouldn't be someone from the Scarlet Sun planet. If he was, there's no way he wouldn't know. Chu Lao had a puzzled look on his face. As he spoke, a bloody aura of death rose into the sky, and the erratic vampire appeared. Lu Xingyuan revealed a terrified expression. Has Snow Lady been killed? Because Lu Xingyuan's cultivation wasn't high, if the vampire hadn't appeared, he wouldn't have known that the vampire had already left the cave. As Lu Xingyuan spoke, his expression became desolate. If Snow Lady had really been killed by the vampire, that meant that he still had a few more years to live. Most dark ghosts didn't have a physical body, and were formed from the aura of death. They had a form but no substance, but the vampire was an exception. The vampire's body was surrounded by a bloody aura of death. Within the dark red fog, there was an object that looked like a bug, and its strange eyes emitted a bloodthirsty red light. When the vampire appeared, the rotten dragon seemed to have received some kind of signal. It let out a loud roar and charged towards Li Daochong. It opened its bloody mouth and spat out a black flame. Li Daochong's lips curled up. Dark fire. However, compared to the dark lightning summoned by the tongue-pulling malicious ghost, this dark fire was not worth mentioning. Dodge. Why aren't you dodging? Lu Zhenzhen cried out. Lu Xingyuan and Chu Lao were also worried. This young man was their only hope for survival. They knew very well that escaping was useless. No matter how fast they were, they couldn't be faster than the vampire. Boom! Dark fire spewed out of the dragon's mouth and instantly engulfed Li Daochong. Dead? Lu Zhenzhen didn't believe it. Lu Xingyuan and Chu Lao looked at each other. It was over? That young man had been burned to death by the dark fire? It was a flash in the pan. Everyone who was still alive had ashen faces. At this moment, they forgot to run and just stared blankly at the burning dark fire. Pa pa pa. Clang. Suddenly, an intense flash of lightning erupted from the dark fire. Immediately after, a green figure shot out. What? Chu Lao exclaimed in disbelief. The unfamiliar young man shot out of the dark fire. His body was flickering with lightning. The dark fire didn't even hurt a single hair on his head. Li Daochong, who had spiritual yang thunder, was naturally not afraid of the dark fire. At least, this level of dark fire couldn't hurt him. In fact, Li Daochong's attention had been focused on the vampire. He didn't pay attention to the rotting dragon at all. 9 split saber technique, 5th level, *//. Li Daochong rushed out of the dark fire and headed straight for the vampire. Hiss! The vampire let out a strange cry. It didn't expect this person to be unafraid of the dark fire and dare to attack it. The dark red fog gathered into a ball and blasted toward Li Daochong. Whoosh! The saber flashed and the fog was split in half. However, the saber also disappeared. Li Daochong exclaimed softly. This was the first time that a dark ghost could resolve a move of the 9 split saber technique. The splitting effect was also annihilated. Li Daochong's spirit chi increased by another level. 9 split saber technique, 6th level, *//. This slash was twice as powerful as the previous one. The saber was dazzling and a huge saber shadow appeared on the blade. Lu Xingyuan looked at the huge saber shadow that was more than 10 meters long and exclaimed, "Amazing skill!" Chapter 262. It was as if the blade was going to split the space in half. The insect-like vampire's compound eyes flashed with black light, and a blood-red light shot out of its blood-sucking mouthpart. The blade light and the blood-red light collided. Boom! There was a loud noise. The collision melted and turned into energy waves that scattered in all directions. Li Daochong's eyes revealed a look of surprise. The sun-breaking slash, the 6th layer of the 9 split saber art, was also blocked. The vampire was even more shocked, and the pair of dark red wings on its back shook violently. This human had not reached the foundation establishment stage, but his strength was ridiculously strong. At the wraith level, the intelligence of a wraith was close to that of a human, and it was very clear about the level of a cultivator. A wraith at the wraith level was equivalent to a human cultivator at the foundation establishment stage. Those below the foundation establishment stage had little chance of winning against wraith. At most, they could only compete with the weakest wraith. A slightly stronger wraith could easily destroy a cultivator at the chi-gathering stage. However, the human in front of it did not release spiritual gang, which was unique to foundation establishment stage cultivators, but his strength was stronger than that of an average foundation establishment stage cultivator. Li Daochong missed twice. This was the first time since he mastered the 9 cracks saber technique. When Li Daochong was about to make a third strike, the rotting dragon pounced on him again, forming a pincer attack with the vampire. Li Daocheng's eyes narrowed. The insect-like vampire in front of him might be more powerful than what he had sensed. Li Daocheng did not dare to be careless. He still focused all his attention on the vampire. He reached out his hand, and 5 7th-level talismans appeared in his palm. The spirit in his palm moved, and the 5 talismans shot behind Li Daocheng at the same time. Bang! 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 5 consecutive explosions. The rotting dragon's steel-like skin and flesh were blown apart. 5 hideous rotting holes revealed the white bones inside. Although it was not dead, the rotting dragon's vitality was greatly damaged. The shock on Chu Lao's old face became more intense. He said in disbelief, "A 7th-level talisman, it's a 7th-level talisman. Only a 7th-level talisman can hurt a rotting dragon. Otherwise, it can't even break its skin." When Lu Xingyuan heard Chu Lao's words, he did not care about the power of the level 7 spiritual talisman, but the price. This young man casually took out 5 7th-level talismans. Just how rich and overbearing was this? Lu Xinzhen looked at the unfamiliar young man standing between the rotten dragon and the vampire. Her beautiful eyes were throbbing with a hint of understanding. Chu Weibin thought even more. Who would use a level 7 talisman like this? Not only was this kid powerful, but his wealth was also not to be underestimated. After Li Daocheng released the 5 talismans as if they were free, he didn't even look behind him. He raised the Tsang ink in his hand and lightly shouted, 9 split saber arts 7th layer, space splitting slash. The giant saber shadow appeared once again. This time, it was even bigger and the saber light was dazzling. A bone blade extended from the insect-shaped vampire's leg and swept out horizontally. Clang! A crisp sound that shook the heavens and the earth. The bone saber shattered, and the saber light disappeared. Once again, both sides cancelled each other out. Li Daocheng's pupils shrank slightly. Even the 7th layer was useless. Was this the true power of a ghost-level dark ghost? The insect-shaped vampire in front of him was far more powerful than Li Daocheng had expected. Hiss! After the insect-shaped vampire let out a strange cry, an extremely stiff voice sounded. "Human, you are very powerful. Unfortunately, you met me. Your soul is very powerful. If I suck your essence blood, I should be able to become a soul catcher and become a part of me. You should feel honored. Now, it is time for me to express my respect for you." As it spoke, a black and red death aura condensed on the insect-shaped vampire's butt. It wriggled and turned into the shape of an arrow. Blood Soul Arrow. Whoosh! The Blood Soul Arrow pierced through the air. Its speed was so fast that it could not be seen with the naked eye. Li Daocheng felt a chill down his spine. He felt an unprecedented sense of danger. Fortunately, his telekinesis was very sensitive. He did not need to see with his eyes. Li Daocheng suddenly turned sideways. The Blood Soul Arrow flew past him. It was less than half a meter away from him. The vacuum vortex that broke through the air cut a wound on Li Daocheng's cheek. Blood flowed out. Li Daocheng had just stabilized himself and was about to launch another attack when he felt something behind his head. He did not have time to move. He jumped forward. Whoosh! The sound of something piercing through the air came from behind his head. The Blood Soul Arrow was reflected back. Li Daocheng somersaulted and straightened his body. Using his telekinesis, he sensed that the Blood Soul Arrow in the air had circled around and was coming at him again. Stalking? Li Daocheng's heart skipped a beat. There was such a move. However, when Li Daocheng looked at the insect-shaped vampire, another Blood Soul Arrow condensed under the insect-shaped vampire's butt. Damn! Li Daocheng cursed inwardly. As he dodged, he slashed out with the 8th layer of the 9-split saber art midair slash. Tsang ink shot out from Li Daocheng's hand like an arrow, heading straight for the insect-shaped vampire. At almost the same time, a second Blood Soul Arrow shot at Li Daocheng. The two blood soul arrows were astonishingly fast. They followed the human soul relentlessly. Li Daochong was tired of dodging, so he didn't have time to attack again. Song Mo, who attacked, didn't hit the bug-shaped vampire. For a moment, Li Daochong was at a disadvantage. This was the first time Li Daochong had been at a disadvantage against a dark ghost since awakening and activating the hot-blooded upgrader. There was even a chance that he would lose. Li Daochong dodged 10 sometimes. Once, the blood soul arrow almost pierced through his back. Midair slash was actually a saber manipulation technique. As long as Li Daochong used his psychic power, Song Inc. could kill him multiple times. But at this moment, Li Daochong could not divert his attention to control Song Inc. Dodging 2 blood soul arrows at the same time was already good enough. As Li Daochong dodged, he glanced at the insect-shaped vampire. A 3rd blood soul arrow was in the process of condensing under the bum's butt. However, the dark red fog around the insect-shaped vampire had become extremely faint. Its black body was actually turning gray. The 3rd blood soul arrow took much longer to condense than the first 2. It looked like it was taking a lot of effort. 3 blood soul arrows was the insect-shaped vampire's limit. But even so, it was enough to deal with Li Daochong. He might be able to dodge too, but once the 3rd arrow was released, Li Daochong definitely would not be able to dodge it. Seeing that the 3rd blood soul arrow was about to condense, Li Daochong gritted his teeth. At this critical moment, he could not care less. He had to use his trump card. Li Daochong did not plan to use the Spirit Sun Lightning because he could not consolidate it. He was worried that it would dissipate faster after he used it. He was about to lose his life, so he could not care less. Even if it all dissipated, he could find a way to cultivate it back in the future. If he lost his life, he would lose everything. Just as Li Daochong was about to go all out, the surrounding temperature suddenly dropped. Cold wind blew out of the cave. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew past. A thick layer of ice condensed on the ground at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was as if the space was about to be frozen. Lu Zhenzhen felt like she had fallen into an ice cave. Her teeth chattered as she shivered from the cold. There was a layer of ice on Lu Xingyuan's eyebrows, almost blocking his vision. However, he did not care. He looked excitedly in the direction of the cave and said happily, "The Snow Lady is not dead." Elder Chu seemed to be deep in thought as he gripped the compass in his hand. A hint of greed appeared in his turbid old eyes. Subsequently, he placed his hands behind his back and opened his palm. The compass slowly landed on the ground and flew towards the cave like a tortoise sticking close to the ground. After the temperature dropped, Li Daochong clearly felt that the 2 blood soul arrows that were constantly attacking him had slowed down. He no longer needed to expend energy to dodge them. Moreover, their speed was still decreasing. The bug-shaped vampire that was condensing the 3rd blood soul arrow seemed to be frozen. It did not move at all. The injured rotten dragon had turned into an ice sculpture and could not move. Li Daochong knew that something was coming out of the cave. However, he did not even look. He stomped his feet and rushed out like a cheetah. He pounced toward the bug-shaped vampire. Li Daochong opened his palm. The Tsang ink that had fallen to the ground far away flew into his hand. The 7th stage of the 9-split saber technique, space splitting slash. Whoosh! A giant Tsang ink appeared in the air and slashed down quickly. The bug-shaped vampire had consumed a lot of energy to condense the 2 blood soul arrows. Now that it was attacked by the ice, it was unprepared and was frozen in place. Boom! With one slash, the insect-shaped vampire was split into 2 halves. Then, the 2 halves of its body exploded outwards with a series of muffled sound. Then, they turned into fragments and fell to the ground. The fading dark red mist dissipated. Beep. You have killed a baleful ghost-level vampire. Soul power gained. The familiar prompt sounded in the depths of Li Daochong's mind. A dark red fog was quickly absorbed into his body. In the next moment, Li Daochong felt the spirit energy in his body increase rapidly. The slightly formed spirit base placenta became more tangible. Although he had not broken through yet, he was not far away. After killing the vampire with one blow, Li Daochong was secretly relieved. He put the Tsang ink into his storage bag and turned to look in the direction of the cave. Chapter 263. The Snow Lady was neither a human nor a ghost. She was a spirit. Li Daochong had almost been defeated, and it was all thanks to the Snow Lady that he was able to kill the vampire. If it weren't for her icy aura freezing the vampire and slowing down the blood-soul arrow, Li Daochong wouldn't have been able to retaliate. "Human, thank you." An ethereal voice sounded beside Li Daochong's ear. Li Daochong nodded slightly at the Snow Lady before frowning. The spatial fluctuations in the cave were becoming more and more unstable, and the aura of death was rising continuously. The spatial rift seemed to be about to open. "Human, hurry up and escape. The Hades is about to open. This place will become a dead star soon," the Snow Lady said weakly. "Aren't you going to escape?" Li Daochong asked. "I can't escape. I've been trapped here by that vampire for more than 10 years. We've been fighting for more than 10 years, and the spiritual energy in my body has been depleted. My remaining spiritual energy should be able to delay the opening of the spatial rift for a while longer," the Snow Lady replied pitifully. The Snow Lady had saved Li Daochong's life, and he didn't want her to die for nothing. He said, "Since you can't stop it, why bother? It doesn't make much of a difference whether it's earlier or later. Why don't I take you with me? Perhaps I can help you recover your spiritual energy." The Snow Lady shook her head. "There's no need. It's been 500 years since I became a spirit. I've lived long enough. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth gave birth to me to protect them. It's time for me to repay my debt." Li Daochong wanted to persuade her again, but he suddenly sensed a strange power surging toward the Snow Lady. The compass beneath the Snow Lady's feet rose, and a powerful suction force surged from the compass. It was like a miniature black hole. "No!" the Snow Maiden exclaimed as her body was sucked into the air and flew toward the compass. Li Daochong glanced at the Chu Lao before rushing forward and grabbing the compass. The Chu Lao watched as the compass was about to absorb the Snow Lady. That kid actually reached out to grab the compass. One had to know that the compass was the Chu Lao's ancestral treasure. His great-grandfather had used it to raise ghosts. After several generations of inheritance, the power of the compass had grown stronger and stronger. It could even subdue baleful ghost-level dark ghosts. Without the Chu clan's secret technique, anyone who touched the compass would be devoured by the death aura accumulated over hundreds of years and become a part of the dead soul. "No," Chu Lao shouted. This compass was called the Extreme Een Compass, and it was a low-grade Earth-rank magic treasure when it was created, but it could be upgraded as it was used. After several hundred years of nurturing by several generations of the Chu clan, it was now a high-grade heaven-rank magic treasure, and it would surpass the heaven rank and become a mystical spirit treasure. Only at this level could it be considered a true transcendent artifact. It could go down into the ground and up into the sky. Its size could be changed with a single thought. Only with a mystical spiritual treasure could the spell be called a divine ability. Otherwise, it would just be some small tricks. Chu Lao had obtained the Extreme Een Compass for more than 60 years. He had been nurturing it carefully and capturing ghosts to absorb into the compass. But no matter how hard he tried and how careful he was, the compass could not be upgraded. It remained at the high-grade heaven rank. Chu Lao studied it for more than 10 years before he finally understood that the reason why the compass could not be upgraded was because it did not have a spirit origin. Otherwise, it would have been upgraded long ago. Dark ghosts were easy to find, but spirit origins were difficult. Spirit origins were spirits condensed from the spirit chi of heaven and earth. It was already not bad if one appeared on a cultivation planet with abundant spirit chi. Even if one appeared, it was very difficult to find. Spirits could merge with heaven and earth, and were completely one with nature. It was also very difficult for powerful cultivators to find them. Spirits could only be found by chance. Even if you were lucky enough to find a spirit born from heaven and earth, it would be very difficult to capture it. This was because spirits that absorbed the essence of heaven and earth had their own attribute. They were extraordinarily strong. Chi-gathering cultivators would find it difficult to even get close to them, let alone capture them. Take the Snow Lady for example. Without a chi-gathering pinnacle-level cultivation and a protective robe, she would be frozen into an ice sculpture. Chu Lao understood that he needed to absorb a spirit origin to upgrade the compass. He thought that he would never be able to upgrade the extreme Yin compass in his lifetime. However, life was unpredictable. Chu Lao did not expect that he would encounter a spirit origin in his lifetime. Chu Lao saw Li Daochong reach out to grab the extreme Yin compass and shouted. At this time, touching a human spirit would greatly reduce the effects of the compass. Lu Xingyuan's heart was in his throat. He did not expect that Chu Lao would kill the Snow Lady. He was very clear about the power of the compass in Chu Lao's hands. Killing the Snow Lady meant cutting off Lu Xingyuan's path of survival. Chu Lao did not care about his master's life. Chu Lao Yu. Lu Xingyuan looked at the old butler who had followed him for decades in disbelief. Master, after I absorb the Snow Lady, I will find other ways to extend your life, Chu Lao said indifferently. Then, he took out a banner and inserted it into the ground. Li Daochong had already grabbed the compass. Under Chu Lao's circumstances, he could only cast a spell to increase the extreme Yin compass's effects. This banner was Chu Lao's Yin-Yang flag, which was second only to the extreme Yin compass. It could temporarily turn an area of 10 meters into an underworld realm. The extreme Yin compass's power would be maximized in the underworld realm. Chu Lao knew that it was a rare opportunity to encounter a spirit origin. It was unlikely that he would encounter one again in his lifetime. No matter what, Chu Lao would not let anyone or anything destroy the extreme Yin compass, which had surpassed the heavenly tier and become a mystical spiritual treasure. Chu Lao was already injured when he was fighting the decaying dragon, but now, he had to take out the Yin-Yang flag and set up a death array in the underworld realm. Father, what is Chu Lao doing? Lu Zhenzhen did not understand. He wants to absorb the Snow Lady into the compass and make it into a mystical spiritual treasure. Lu Xingyuan looked at Chu Lao with a strange gaze. Chu Lao's compass is that powerful? Lu Zhenzhen did not believe it. It's more than powerful. There are at least 1,000 underworld ghost dead souls in the compass. Why do you think your father respects Chu Lao so much? It's because he has such a powerful Dharma treasure. Chu Lao can even fight against Foundation establishment cultivators. Although Lu Xingyuan said this, his expression was very lonely. He had raised Chu Lao for so many years, but this old man did not care about his life or death at the crucial moment. If that's really the case, then won't that brat be killed by the death chi when he touches the compass? Lu Zhenzhen said in shock. He'll definitely die. Not to mention that he's only at the peak of the chi-gathering stage. Even a Foundation establishment cultivator would not be able to resist the power of the dead souls in Chu Lao's compass, Lu Xingyuan said regretfully. At the entrance of the cave, Li Daochong placed his palm on the center of the compass's powerful suction force the moment the Snow Lady was sucked into the compass. The Snow Lady's beautiful face was filled with shock. Human, why did you save me? Ever since the Snow Lady was formed, she had met all kinds of humans and underworld ghosts, but no one had ever saved her. They only thought about how to capture her or absorb her essence directly. Save her? That was impossible. Risking his life to save her? That was absolutely impossible. She was only formed from spirit chi. In the eyes of humans, she was no different from a spirit stone. In the eyes of underworld ghosts, she was the bane of their existence. Li Daocheng's hand touched the compass, and his body was instantly infected by the power of the dead souls. His entire body turned black, and the death qi lingered around him. It looked like he was not far from death. However, Li Daocheng's expression changed slightly. He looked at the Snow Lady and replied, "You saved me, so of course I have to save you." This was a simple answer, but the Snow Lady was moved. "There are terrifying dead souls hidden in that compass. You will die. Is it worth it to sacrifice your life to save me? I'm only a ball of spirit qi." Li Daocheng grinned. "I don't care what you are. You saved me, so I have to save you." However, this smile stunned the Snow Maiden. Was this still the human that she knew? At this moment, the death qi around them suddenly rose, as if they had suddenly fallen into the Hades. The extreme Yin compass started to tremble violently. It was as if something was trying to break free from the compass. Li Daocheng's expression tightened. The blood upgrader in his sea of consciousness also started to tremble violently. It rapidly absorbed the dead souls and converted them into spirit qi. The rapid rate of absorption made him extremely uncomfortable. The dead souls in the compass continued to attack Li Daocheng's body. However, with every attack, a notification would sound, indicating that he had obtained it. After the 11th attack, Li Daocheng felt as if he was about to explode. The amount of spirit qi that had been converted had already exceeded his tolerance range. However, the power of the dead souls in the compass was still extremely powerful. How could the accumulation of hundreds of years be absorbed so quickly? Li Daocheng thought that he could break through to the foundation establishment stage with so many dead souls. However, the upgrade did not occur. The depths of the cave also started to tremble. The spatial rift was slowly opening, and countless malicious spirits from the Hades could not wait to charge out of the rift. Li Daocheng, who was at the entrance of the cave, could already see the spatial door opening. Was the Crimson Sun planet finished? Why didn't any other cultivators discover this phenomenon? If that spatial rift really opened, the first ones to suffer would be him and the Snow Maiden. Li Daocheng did not want to die just like that. He looked at the compass in his hand and revealed a look of pity. He had originally planned to absorb all the dead souls inside and convert them into spirit qi before keeping the compass for himself. Li Daocheng knew better than anyone else what a mystical spiritual treasure meant. This thing was a priceless treasure. Not many foundation establishment cultivators had a mystical spiritual treasure. Most Jin Dan cultivators did not have one either. His father, Li Tianyang, was such a powerful cultivator, but he had not been able to obtain a mystical spiritual treasure even after spending more than 10 years in the Jin Dan. Human, let go. With your strength, you still have time to escape. I can buy you some time, the Snow Maiden said resolutely. Li Daocheng did not reply. All the spirit qi in his body suddenly exploded. He retracted his hand and released the compass easily. Immediately after, the Tsang ink appeared in Li Daocheng's hand. Holding the hilt with both hands, Li Daocheng muttered regretfully, "Forget it, I don't want it anymore." Immediately after, Li Daocheng swung the Tsang ink like a baseball bat and hit the compass hard. Bang! Under the attack, the compass turned into a ray of light and shot into the cave. When Lu Xingyuan saw the unfamiliar young man easily remove his hand from the compass, he was petrified. Who was this kid? Even the extreme Yin compass, which was close to a mystical spiritual treasure, was ineffective against him. Chapter 264. Boom! A massive explosion erupted from within the cave. The extreme Yin compass slammed into the spatial rift, unleashing massive energy fluctuations. Immediately afterward, a terrifying cry that could only be heard in the abyss sounded, but it quickly disappeared. The cry came from the depths of the darkness behind the spatial rift. It was sharp and piercing, and it was tinged with frustration, anger, and indignation. Pa, pa, pa. Lightning flashed around the spatial rift, and the spatial rift quickly shrank. The unstable spatial rift began to stabilize. Soon, the spatial rift was completely sealed, and a compass appeared at the center of the rift, sealing it off. The compass was naturally embedded into the cave wall, but there were a few ghostly faces on it. In the instant that the spatial rift closed, a few fearless dark ghosts still tried to charge out, and they crashed into the compass. These dark ghosts had all become the power of dead souls within the compass. The compass had absorbed a large number of dark ghosts when it came into contact with the spatial rift, and it had been upgraded to a mysterious dark treasure. Otherwise, there was no way to seal off the spatial rift. Li Daocheng's helpless actions had prevented a calamity that was about to happen. Pfff. In the distance, Chu Lao spat out a mouthful of blood, and his life force instantly disappeared. He had suffered a backlash from using the dark underworld formation, and he was not far from death. Lu Xingyuan and his daughter stood in a daze. They did not know what had happened, but their surroundings had changed, and they had returned to the mountain valley. Several flying shuttles and that flying space shuttle were parked silently in the snow. Chu Weibin had already run off. He had fled for his life after being shocked by Li Daocheng's strength. The Snow Maiden stood at the entrance of the cave, and an incredulous expression appeared on her face as she looked at the spatial rift that had calmed down. "It's been sealed off," the Snow Maiden said in a daze. It's been sealed off." Li Daocheng's back was already soaked with sweat, and his heart finally settled down. "Thank you." A faint blush appeared on the Snow Maiden's cheek. "I should be the one thanking you." Li Daocheng cracked a smile. "We're even." The Snow Maiden also smiled. "Give me your hand," Li Daocheng continued. The Snow Maiden faltered for a moment. She didn't know what he meant, but she still extended her slender, translucent hand. Li Daocheng reached out and grabbed her hand. The Snow Lady's body trembled, and the blush on her face deepened. Her hand trembled, and she tried to retract her hand. Li Daocheng's grip was very tight, but the Snow Lady didn't withdraw her hand. She looked at Li Daocheng coquettishly. It was as if he was saying, "You asked me to reach out just to take advantage of me?" Li Daocheng's eyes were as calm as ever, and he didn't notice the Snow Lady's gaze. The excess spiritual energy in his body quickly gathered in his palm. Very soon, the Snow Lady sensed a warm spiritual energy on her hand, and she realized that she had misunderstood his intentions. Li Daocheng generously channeled all of the excess spiritual energy to the Snow Maidens. The Snow Maidens' dispirited state quickly disappeared, and their depleted spiritual energy was instantly replenished, becoming even more condensed and concentrated than before. In less than a minute, the Snow Lady had recovered to her peak state. The Snow Lady looked at Li Daocheng in shock. "Human, how do you have so much spiritual energy?" Li Daocheng shrugged. "Is it? It's all right, but I can't digest it myself, so I can only give it to you." The Snow Lady had a pure heart. Even though she had seen too much of human deceit, she was still a pure fairy born from heaven and earth. The Snow Lady looked at Li Daocheng gratefully and asked, "Human, what's your name?" "Li Daocheng." "Li Daocheng. Remember, my name is Xuanai. Thank you for giving me a new life. I'm going to hibernate for a while. When I wake up, I'll come and find you. Don't forget me then." The Snow Lady smiled. "You're welcome to find me. It's hard not to know such a beautiful girl like you," Li Daocheng teased. "Is that so? Am I very beautiful?" The Snow Lady was confused. She didn't know about human aesthetic. After asking that question, the Snow Lady looked at Li Daocheng nervously and waited for his reply. For some reason, she was very concerned. "Of course," Li Daocheng replied with certainty. "How about compared to her?" The Snow Lady pointed at Lu Xinjun, who was standing in the distance with a blank expression. "You're much prettier than her." Li Daochong didn't expect the Snow Lady to ask him such a serious question. He resisted the urge to laugh as he replied. Oh, then I won't worry that you'll forget me. Remember, I'll come and find you. The Snow Lady's tone became more serious, as if she was afraid that Li Daochong wouldn't take her seriously. Before Li Daochong could reply, the Snow Lady had already disappeared. It was as if she had melted into the wind and disappeared. Li Daochong pursed his lips. This ability was not bad. After the Snow Lady disappeared, Li Daochong actually felt a little disappointed. After that, Li Daochong turned and walked towards the flying shuttle. He didn't care about Lu Xingyuan and his daughter. The Chu Lao collapsed in the snow. He sighed, closed his eyes, and rode his crane to the west. Lu Xingyuan only recovered from his shock when he saw Li Daochong leave. He hurriedly ran over and shouted as he ran. "Senior, please hold on. Senior, please hold on." Li Daochong had a strange expression on his face. He turned to look at Lu Xingyuan, who was panting as he ran over. "You called me?" Lu Xingyuan nodded his head like a rattledrum. "Yes, yes." Li Daochong was a little displeased. "Am I that old? You're calling me senior?" Lu Xingyuan hurriedly said, "Senior is an honorific. Your abilities are unparalleled. No matter if it's cultivation or strength, you're above me. I naturally have to call you senior." Between cultivators, they only address each other based on their cultivation and strength. They don't care about age. Moreover, a cultivator's age can't be determined by their appearance. Some people reach foundation establishment in their 70s or 80s. Some reach foundation establishment in their 20s. The former has the appearance of an old man, while the latter can maintain their youth for a long time. The two may be the same age, or the former may be younger than the latter. Of course, it's also possible that the latter is younger than the former. In short, there are all kinds of possibilities. Therefore, between cultivators, they usually address each other according to their cultivation level. If one's cultivation level is higher than theirs, then they are called senior. In Lu Xingyuan's eyes, this unfamiliar young man's cultivation level is many times higher than his. Calling him senior is not an exaggeration. Previously, he thought that this young man was only at the peak of qi gathering. But if even the extreme Yin compass can't do anything to him, how can he only be at the peak of qi gathering? He must be a cultivator, and his cultivation level should be above the middle stage of foundation establishment. Even Lu Xingyuan, the patriarch of a large family with status and wealth, would find it difficult to make friends with such a powerful person. At this moment, Lu Xingyuan had to be thick-skinned and try to worm his way into being friends with him. Li Daochong also knew this, but to him, he really wasn't used to being addressed like this. He said, "My surname is Li. You can call me Mr. Li." Seeing that this powerful person was willing to tell him his surname, Lu Xingyuan was extremely excited. He introduced himself, "Mr. Li, I am Lu Xingyuan, the patriarch of the Lu family on planet Crimson Sunday. If it weren't for Mr. Li's presence today, I'm afraid that I would be a dried corpse by now, deader than dead. Mr. Li, I am unable to repay you for saving my life. I only wish to know where Mr. Li lives so that I can prepare a small gift and visit you to express my gratitude." Li Daochong waved his hand and was about to reject him when he suddenly thought of something. He said calmly, "There's no need to thank me. I heard that you want to capture snow girls?" Lu Xingyuan's heart skipped a beat. He clearly saw Mr. Li holding the snow girl's hand just now. The two of them were secretly exchanging glances. It seemed that their relationship wasn't ordinary. Yes, Lu Xingyuan stammered. "Forget about the past. Don't think about it in the future. If I find out that you still want to capture snow girls, don't blame me for being rude to your Lu family," Li Daochong warned. All right. Mr. Li, please instruct me. I will definitely not provoke the snow maidens again. Lu Xingyuan swallowed a mouthful of saliva. At this moment, a powerful aura was pressing down on him, causing him to not even dare to raise his head. That's good," Li Daochong said as he boarded the flying shuttle and was about to leave. Seeing that the mighty figure was about to leave, Lu Xingyuan forced himself to take a deep breath and said, "Mr. Li, I had no choice but to capture the Snow Maidens. I have contracted a strange illness, and I don't have much time left. Mr. Li's divine abilities are unparalleled. I wonder if you can treat me. If you can, I am willing to give you everything I have as a reward." No one would complain about having too much money. Li Daochong had also heard the conversation between Lu Zhenzhen and the others earlier. He roughly knew what kind of strange illness Lu Xingyuan had contracted. He was actually a little curious. He didn't say anything. Instead, he grabbed Lu Xingyuan's wrist and probed into Lu Xingyuan's body with his spirit qi. Li Daochong was shocked. There was indeed death qi in Lu Xingyuan's body, but there were no dead souls. It wasn't caused by the black wrath binding spirit. Instead, there was an invisible death line connecting him. It was this death line that was robbing his life force. Discovered withered ghost. Chapter 265. This was the first time Li Daochong had heard of the withered ghost. It was a very unfamiliar type of dark ghost. However, the blood-boiling level-up device soon displayed the withered ghost's attributes and level. It was a baleful ghost level dark ghost. Its strength was above average. It was equivalent to a mid-stage foundation establishment cultivator. It was called the withered ghost because it could release soul-sucking threads that were connected to a human body. It could absorb the life force of the human soul. This method of absorbing life force was very slow for an individual, but the withered ghost could release more than 1,000 soul-sucking threads at the same time. It could absorb the life force of more than 1,000 people at the same time. Could be fast or slow. The fast ones would die within a few months. The slow ones could not survive for more than 5 years. The withered life ghost was a very strange existence among the higher-level dark ghosts. In terms of individual combat power, it was extremely strong. It was at the bottom of the list of baleful ghosts. However, it would not fight directly. Instead, it would hide in the dark and give you a fatal blow when you least expected it. Lu Xingyuan, for example, did not know that he was connected to the withered ghost's soul-sucking thread. Without Yuanying's cultivation, finding the withered ghost was like finding a needle in the ocean. It would take a lot of luck. Otherwise, you would not be able to find it for the rest of your life. If Li Daochong did not have the blood-boiling level-up device, he would not have discovered the soul-sucking thread that was connected to Lu Xingyuan even if he had reached the foundation establishment stage. This thing was like an invisible magnetic field. It could not be detected. Li Daochong was immediately interested. If he could find this withered ghost and kill it or absorb it, he should be able to level up and enter the foundation establishment stage. "Mr. Li, can I still be cured?" Lu Xingyuan asked carefully. "There should be a chance," Li Daochong replied pretentiously. "Really? Mr. Li, you know about this strange disease?" Lu Xingyuan asked as if he was grabbing onto a life-saving straw. "I've seen similar diseases in an ancient book. Let me go back and look it up before I treat you." Li Daochong continued to find a place to consolidate his cultivation. He did not have the time to treat Lu Xingyuan. The only way to cure Lu Xingyuan was to find the withered ghost and kill it. However, it would not be easy to find the withered ghost. Li Daochong would have to rest for a few days. "Okay, Mr. Li, how can I contact you?" Lu Xingyuan didn't forget to ask for Li Daochong's contact information. "I'll go to the Lu family to look for you in a week's time. It's best if you don't go out during this time." After saying that, Li Daochong pressed the start button. Without waiting for Lu Xingyuan's reply, he had already driven the flying shuttle into the sky, quickly disappearing into the horizon. Lu Xingyuan couldn't get his contact information, so he felt a little uneasy. If Mr. Li didn't come, it would be almost impossible for the Lu family to find him. It was not easy to find such a cultivator. Lu Xingyuan felt uneasy, but there was nothing he could do. He could only go back and wait. Then, he took his daughter, Lu Xinzhen, and boarded the shuttle. The two of them left together. Shuangyuan town, which was 300 kilometers away, was in a mess as if it had experienced an earthquake. All the houses had collapsed, and corpses were everywhere. There were no survivors in the entire town. The area where Shuangyuan town was located was actually the center of the overlapping space with the largest spatial fluctuations. Although it happened in the abandoned mine, the spatial fluctuations caused by the spatial rift were in the direction of Shuangyuan town. When Li Daochong arrived at Shuangyuan town, everyone in the town was trapped in the overlapping space. They were both in Shuangyuan town and not in Shuangyuan town. When the spatial rift was sealed, the spatial fluctuations disappeared, and the overlapping space also disappeared. However, the tearing force when the two spaces were separated was not something that ordinary people could withstand at all. Even those in the building foundation stage could not withstand it. Those in the Jindan stage could barely withstand it for a while, but it still depended on the strength of the spatial tearing force. Even soul formation stage cultivators could not withstand the spatial tearing force of the black hole of the Hades on tongue-pulling planet. Under the spatial tearing force, Shuangyuan town was crushed into pieces. More than 10 minutes later, a golden light flashed in the sky above Shuangyuan town. An effeminate man wearing a golden robe appeared in the clouds above the town, stepping on a golden longsword. His body was surrounded by a layer of spiritual energy that bloomed into a thick spiritual energy shield. He was an early-stage Jindan stage cultivator. Golden Sword perfected Lord Lu Xingzhan. One of the three great experts of Planet Crimson Sunday. Lu Xingzhan looked down and stared for a moment before slowly descending. He glanced at the town and opened his slender fingers. A cloud of mist-like gas appeared in his palm. Bang! The mist instantly exploded and expanded. Wherever it passed, the mist moved. It could actually detect the movements of spatial fluctuations. Wherever there were spatial fluctuations, the mist would deduce spatial fluctuations and circulate along with them. Lu Xingzhan frowned and suddenly raised his head. A white light rushed over, and a woman in white instantly landed in front of him. Lu Xingzhan only glanced at the woman in white before turning his gaze to another direction in the sky and said, "Old gun, why are you still hiding in the clouds? Are you playing hide-and-seek?" Boom! The clouds exploded, and a red light shot out like a cannonball to the ground. There was a heavy thud as the ground cracked and stretched for hundreds of meters, like a meteorite crashing to the ground. A burly old man with white hair and a ruddy complexion stood in the middle of the cracked ground with his hands behind his back. He was stepping on a fiery red metal object that looked like a cannonball. I thought I was the only one who sensed the spatial crack here. I didn't expect the two of you to be able to sense it from the other side of Planet Crimson Sunday. Your cultivation has improved a lot recently. Lu Xingzhan smiled slightly. Jindan, you little brat, don't be sarcastic with me. You're about to break through the early stage of Jindan and enter the early stage of Jindan. The burly old man called Old Gun said, as he looked at Lu Xingzhan with a pair of bright eyes. It's easy for you to say. It's not that easy. For the time being, no one can shake your position as the #1 person on Planet Crimson Sun, Lu Xingzhan replied nonchalantly. The two of you, there's no need to fight at this time. The spatial fluctuation here was strong enough to tear space apart, but now it's stabilized. Don't you think it's strange? The woman in white said with a serious expression. Bai Yi, the only female cultivator at the Jindan stage on Planet Crimson Sun, had mastered the white phoenix silk ribbon. At this moment, the ribbon was wrapped around her waist. A few days ago, I sensed something strange and came here. However, I stayed for a day and didn't find anything. I thought it was an illusion and left. It seems that it wasn't an illusion, but I was fooled. To be able to create a spatial crack, it seems that the Wu Gui was involved. We can't afford to provoke that thing. Old Gun's face was filled with fear. I've already checked. This isn't the center of the spatial crack. The center is 300 kilometers to the north, Lu Xingzhan said. Let's go take a look, Bai said as she flew into the clouds and shot toward the north. I haven't seen her for a few years, but she's getting more and more impatient. Lu Xingzhan's lips curled into a smile. The golden sword under his feet instantly moved and followed Bai into the sky. Old Gun didn't say a word. He glanced at the ruins of Shuang Yuan town. The cannonball-like object under his feet flashed red and shot into the sky. Not long after, the 3 Jin Dan cultivators arrived at the entrance of the mine. When the 3 of them saw the extreme Yin compass embedded in the wall of the cave, their eyes were filled with shock. Other than shock, the 3 Jin Dan cultivators felt a sense of pity. It was a mystical spiritual treasure, but it had become a blockage for sealing the spatial crack just like that. If I remember correctly, the extreme Yin compass should be the Chu family's ancestral treasure, Old Gun said gruffly. Hee, if you remember correctly, look, isn't that the Chu family's kid lying there? Lu Xingzhan laughed. 3 generations ago, the Chu family had a late Foundation establishment cultivator. At that time, Old Gun was only at the peak of the Foundation establishment stage. He had some friendship with the Chu family cultivator, so he knew that the Chu family had such a treasure. I didn't expect that the extreme Yin compass, which was only a high-grade Earth-rank extreme Yin compass back then, would be turned into a mystical spiritual treasure by a descendant of the Chu family. It's really surprising, Bai said with a look of surprise. Both of you, the remaining death aura here is very thick. Although it has dissipated a lot, it's still very strong. We didn't notice it until now. Isn't that considered a dereliction of duty? Lu Xingzhan cut to the chase. If it's Wu Gui's doing, it's not strange that we didn't notice it. Planet Qiyang is only a 4th-class cultivation planet, and it's also in the 4th ring starfield. Who would know that Wu Gui would target this place? Old Gun said in a low voice. That's true, but we're still the 3 great cultivators guarding planet Qiyang. If there's a problem here, it's our dereliction of duty. If the higher-ups know about it, they'll definitely send people to investigate, Lu Xingzhan reminded them. I think they already know. Old Gun couldn't stand Lu Xingzhan's gender-neutral tone and replied in a bad mood. So, should the 3 of us explain ourselves? Otherwise, if they really investigate, it'll be very disadvantageous for the 3 of us. You don't want to be transferred to the 5th ring starfield to be patrollers, right? Lu Xingzhan didn't care about Old Gun's attitude. Bai didn't say anything. She walked into the cave and looked at the extreme Yin compass. A few pieces of seemingly ordinary paper appeared in her hand. She casually threw them out, and the paper turned into more than 10 little people that fell to the ground. Another paper turned into a huge dragon-shaped object and chased the 10 little people out of the cave. These little people turned into origami were actually reenacting everything that happened earlier. Although it wasn't a perfect representation, it roughly showed how many people appeared here half an hour ago and what happened. Origami reincarnation is one of Bai's sensing technique. Usually, this spell isn't very useful. However, when it comes to investigating something that has already happened, it'll be very important. A rotten dragon, a malicious ghost-level vampire, and dozens of cultivators. One of them is very likely to be a foundational cultivator. What's the other one? Bai couldn't understand one of the paper dolls. The paper dolls just stood there without moving. White fairy, it shouldn't be a person. It should be a source of spirit, Lu Xingzhan guessed as he sensed the remaining cold air around them. There's actually a cultivator who can sense the hidden fluctuations that the three of us can't. That guy killed the vampire, but the rotten dragon didn't die. It was sucked into the space crack and disappeared. When did a foundational cultivator with such ability appear on Red Sun Planet? Old Gun was puzzled. Old Gun knew all the cultivators on Red Sun Planet who had some ability. However, he couldn't see through the cultivator who killed the vampire at all. It was very strange. Just as the three great cultivators of Red Sun Planet gathered in Shuangyuan Town to investigate the strange fluctuations in space, Li Daochong returned to Floating Snow Town. After refueling the flying shuttle with spirit stones, he left immediately and returned to Red Sun City a few hours later. Li Daochong didn't go back to Beiyang University. Instead, he went directly to the underground city. Under Xing Jiao's arrangement, he entered a cultivation room in Shadow Serene Square to consolidate his cultivation. 3 days later, Li Daochong stabilized the Reiki in his body and his cultivation improved. He was only one step away from the foundational level. There were still more than 20 days before the joint examination of 100 schools. Li Daochong left the cultivation room and went straight to the Lu family. As long as he could find the withered ghost and absorb it, Li Daochong would be able to level up smoothly. The Lu family was one of the big families on the Scarlet Sun Planet. After Li Daochong asked Xing Jiao about it, the latter quickly handed over a detailed report about the Lu family. Li Daochong glanced at the information. Except for the location of the Lu family's headquarters, he didn't even look at the other parts. An hour later, Li Daochong appeared in front of the lobby on the first floor of a skyscraper. Chapter 266. Lu Jie was the receptionist at the front desk of the Xingyuan building. She was also the head receptionist at the front desk. She was quite pretty and was also a member of the Lu family's branch family. Therefore, there were often all kinds of young men who came to court her. There was no lack of rich kids and descendants of big families. However, Lu Jie was very disgusted with these flies. Almost every day, there would be people harassing her. It made her very disgusted with every man who came to talk to her. Lu Jie just wanted to work quietly. However, such a small wish was difficult to fulfill. When she came to work early in the morning, there were 2 rich kids from small families who wanted to show off in front of her. They sent flowers and clothes. When the 2 met, they almost got into a fight. Lu Jie was very distressed about this. The security guards had just chased the 2 away when another suitor came. As a result, the young lady of the Lu family, Lu Zhenzhen, saw the suitor talking to Lu Jie. Although she didn't say it explicitly, she looked at Lu Jie unkindly with a warning. Lu Jie chased away the 3rd suitor with great difficulty. Then, she saw a handsome young man in ordinary clothes walk in. After the young man came in, he kept waiting for Lu Jie. Lu Jie was very distressed. Another one came. Because there were many suitors, Lu Jie didn't know many of them. This young man was none other than Li Daochong, who came to treat Lu Xingyuan. Li Daochong tried to sense Lu Xingyuan's position with his telekinesis. Then, he directly used the void flying steps to go in through the window. However, there was a spiritual array on the outside wall of the skyscraper. Li Daochong's telekinesis couldn't extend in at all. He had to give up the idea of taking a shortcut. After entering the building, Li Daochong didn't know anyone. He glanced around and finally his eyes fell on the front desk. When he saw Lu Jie standing behind the bar, his eyes revealed a strange look. Li Daochong wasn't attracted by Lu Jie's appearance. Lu Jie might be a beauty, but for Li Daochong, who had seen too many beauties, her appearance really didn't rank. Moreover, Li Daochong wasn't a lecherous person. He didn't know his own surname when he saw a beauty. The reason why Li Daochong stared at Lu Jie and revealed a strange expression was because of the death aura on Lu Jie. However, the death aura wasn't coming from Lu Jie's body, but from a bracelet on her wrist. The bracelet looked like it was made of some kind of jade. There was nothing unusual about it on the surface, and it looked like an ordinary accessory. This death aura was very weak, so weak that it was almost negligible. Even cultivators would have a hard time detecting it. However, if they wanted to escape Li Daocheng's detection, they would definitely be discovered unless they completely concealed their death qi. The young man was staring at her, and Lu Jie was annoyed. "What are you looking at? Have you never seen a beauty before? Brat, you dare to come over and strike up a conversation with me? See how I'll beat you to death." Li Daocheng's psychic power locked onto the bracelet on Lu Jie's wrist. He walked slowly to the front desk and asked politely, "Excuse me, which floor is Lu Xingyuan on?" When Lu Jie heard this, she became even angrier. F***CK, why don't you ask if the Federation president is here? You want to pretend in front of me? Do you think a brat like you knows the head of the Lu family, Lu Xingyuan? As a collateral member of the Lu family, I've only seen him 3 times in my life. Who do you think you are? The first thing you ask is which floor Lu Xingyuan is on? Who are you to call Lu Xingyuan? I've seen a lot of pickup lines like you. First, you raise yourself up and give me a show of strength. Then, you ask me to send a message from 1,000 miles away so that I don't dare and can't refuse. Lu Jie said with a cold face, "Do you have an appointment?" Li Daocheng nodded. Yes. However, his gaze was fixed on Lu Jie's hand. There were fine lines on the bracelet, which seemed to be some kind of sealing spiritual array. Lu Jie was most satisfied with her hands. This was also true. Her hands were white and slender, her skin was creamy, and as smooth as jade. They were indeed very beautiful. Countless young men drooled at her hands. Lu Jie was already used to it. She didn't feel strange being stared at by this poor brat. However, the disgust in her eyes became more and more intense. She had seen liars before, but she had never seen such a straightforward lie. She actually asked him if he had an appointment out of procedure. This brat didn't even think about it before answering yes. Do you think I'm stupid? Not to mention a brat like you, even the mayor of Qiyang City has to line up to see the patriarch. Can you make an appointment? Aren't you lying through your teeth? If I believe you, I'm a pig. Lu Jie had suffered a loss before. At that time, there was a student who was still studying in the Cultivation Academy. In order to pursue her, he said that he knew a certain elder of the Lu family. At that time, Lu Jie was inexperienced and didn't know much about these tricks. Thus, she brought the brat to see the elder. In the end, they disturbed the elder's important meeting time. The elder didn't even see the brat and was kicked out on the spot. Because of this, Lu Jie's salary was deducted for a month and her promotion that year was cancelled. Lu Jie saw this brat staring at her hands. She immediately put her hands behind her back and used body language to express her dissatisfaction. Li Daocheng didn't care. There wasn't much difference whether he looked or not. Detection relied on psychokinesis. He didn't notice Lu Jie's dissatisfaction. What's your name? Which company are you from? What's the appointment time? Tell me, I'll check it on the spiritual brain. Lu Jie revealed a look that said, Brat, do you think you can just talk? Was the spiritual brain invented for decoration? Li Daocheng, no company. The appointment time is within a week. Li Daocheng raised his head to look at Lu Jie. When he saw her face, he suddenly felt a little strange. Was this woman going through menopause? Not only was her tone stiff, but her expression was as if someone owed her millions. Lu Jie almost went berserk. No company, appointment time is within a week? What the hell? Lu Jie tried hard to restrain the rolling waves in her heart. After all, the other party didn't say anything out of line. She had to suppress the anger in her heart and routinely searched on the spiritual brain. Unsurprisingly, there was no record of such an appointment. I'm sorry, I didn't find any schedule for your appointment. Lu Jie said with a sullen face. You shouldn't be able to find it on the spiritual brain. I have an oral agreement with Lu Xingyuan. You inform your master that Li Daochong is here to see him. He will understand. Li Daochong smiled politely. I'm sorry, there is no record of an appointment on the spiritual brain. I can't report it. You can go. Lu Jie impatiently replied. Go? Can you show me the bracelet on your hand? Li Daochong froze for a moment. He felt that the receptionist was rigid enough. However, he wasn't in a hurry to see Lu Xingyuan. His attention was on the bracelet. Under the close detection of psychokinesis, Li Daochong clearly felt that the death energy in the bracelet was very similar to the soul-sucking threads on Lu Xingyuan's body. Look at the bracelet? Lu Jie showed an expression that she had expected it. Are you going to ask for my contact information later? Chapter 267. Help me? Veins popped out of Lu Jie's temples. This guy was hitting on girls one after another without stopping. If you want to see my hand, just say so. How dare you say that you want to see my bracelet? You even said that there's something strange about the bracelet that the previous head of the Lu family gave to grandfather? Do you really think I'm a stupid girl? Although Lu Jie was furious, it was working hours and she couldn't argue with the visiting guest. Even if the guest might be fake, she couldn't really fall out with him. Lu's Cultivation Corporation was very strict and no one was allowed to fight with the guests for any reason. The most important rule in the company was, if the guest abuses me 1,000 times, I'll treat the guest like my first love. Lu Jie was troubled because these smart flies knew how to use this to harass her. Mr. Li, right? I appreciate your kindness. My bracelet is fine. I don't need your help. Thank you, Lu Jie replied coldly. I see. Li Daochong saw that this woman didn't appreciate his kindness and felt like she had a grudge against him. He didn't know how he had offended her. How strange. Li Daochong thought that since he had already been here, it would be his loss if he didn't see Lu Xingyuan. As for clues about the withered life ghost, the stupidest way was to do a carpet search in Qiyang City. There should be other people who were connected to the soul-sucking silk thread. As for the bracelet, Li Daochong had his own way of getting it. He had already placed his telekinesis on the woman at the front desk. As long as she was less than 100 kilometers away from Li Daochong, it would be easy to find her. In the dead of the night, Li Daochong had 100 ways to get the bracelet from her without anyone noticing. Li Daochong was about to leave when a man wearing a branded robe walked over. He glanced at Li Daochong with an unfriendly expression and said, Shao Jie, your friend? The man was called Yang Xingyu. He was the heir of the Yang family in Qiyang City. The Yang family wasn't a big family, but they had some background. Yang Xingyu was one of the more capable ones among Lu Jie's many pursuers. He was also the one that Lu Jie didn't hate. However, Lu Jie didn't want to rely on men to get to the top. Her goal was to enter the management of the Lu Family Cultivation Company. Once Lu Jie became a direct member of the Lu family and not a collateral member, Lu Jie's partner would not be someone these rich second generations from small families could covet. Lu Jie was very confident in her own talent. If she had enough resources, she believed that she had a great chance of successfully building her foundation. Even if it was a long process, she could endure it. So even if Yang Xingyu was a suitor, Lu Jie didn't care too much. She just didn't treat him coldly. Yang Xingyu came to the Lu Group Cultivation Company today to discuss cooperation with the next project deputy director of the Lu Group's mining construction department. Of course, Yang Xingyu's main purpose was to curry favor with Lu Jie, but when he arrived, he saw a young man talking to Lu Jie, and Lu Jie's expression was obviously disgusted. When Yang Xingyu heard that this young man actually wanted to see Lu Jie's bracelet, he knew that this kid was probably thinking about Lu Jie. It was not every day that a hero would save a damsel in distress. Sometimes they even had to spend money to hire people to act. However, acting was still too fake and Yang Xingyu disdained to do it. But if he really came across such an opportunity, he naturally couldn't miss it. This was the best way to win a beauty's heart. No, I don't know him. He said he was looking for the family head. I checked, but there's no record. Lu Jie was really worried that this young man in front of her wouldn't stop pestering her. Seeing Yang Xingyu come to save the situation, she was delighted and immediately replied. Friend, if you want to trick people, come up with some clever trick. Do you have an appointment with Master Lu? Friend, it's not that I'm looking down on you, but is Master Lu someone a brat like you can meet? Do you know who I am? Yang Xingyu looked at Li Daochong with a lofty attitude. Li Daochong looked at Yang Xingyu like he was looking at an idiot. Who are you? What does that have to do with me? Li Daochong had already wanted to leave. Now that there was an idiot here, he didn't want to stay any longer. He felt that it was unnecessary to even look at the other party, so he turned around and left. Yang Xingyu looked at him. F***ck. This brat saw that the situation was bad and ran away. Lu Jie looked at him. If I let you go just like that, wouldn't I lose face in front of a beauty? Yang Xingyu grabbed Li Daochong's shoulders. Friend, I'm talking to you. Why are you running away like that? Do you have a guilty conscience? Li Daochong turned around and said indifferently, I don't know you. Why would I talk to you? Yang Xingyu was a little annoyed. However, he still maintained his self-control and smiled. Wouldn't you know me if I introduced you? You said you had an appointment with Master Lu. Do you think anyone would believe that? Do you know the Scarlet Sun City's Yang family? I'm the first successor of the Yang family, Yang Xingyu. I don't even have the right to meet Master Lu. An appointment is impossible. Do you understand? Li Daochong's patience had reached its limit. Who are you? I don't need to know. Let go. Yang Xingyu was stunned. F***ck. This brat dared to challenge him. With a beauty in front of him, how could he let go just like that? Wouldn't that be too embarrassing? Yang Xingyu naturally wouldn't let go. Instead, he used his strength to pull Li Daochong back. But this pull was like pulling a wall. It didn't budge at all. Yang Xingyu's heart skipped a beat. So this brat had some skills. No wonder he was so impulsive. He had seen too many of these brats who didn't know their limits after 2 years of cultivation. Yang Xingyu was actually a little regretful. However, he couldn't take back his hand. He pretended to be calm. Friend, be more polite with your words. Otherwise, it won't be easy for you in the future. Li Daochong didn't want to make a move in such a situation. However, this brat was really annoying. He asked him to let go, but he didn't. His face turned cold. I'll give you one more chance. Let go. Lu Jie saw that the atmosphere was not right. This brat had a bad temper and was very impulsive. She could tell he was a hothead. If Yang Xingyu had a conflict with this brat during her shift, she would be the one in trouble. The PR department's director would punish her for not doing her job properly. She was trying to sow discord between the customers. Lu Jie didn't want both of them to fight. She could tell that Yang Xingyu was a little angry. This brat was from a wealthy family and had never been bullied before. If he couldn't control himself, there would be no end to this. To prevent the situation from worsening, Lu Jie quickly said, Mr. Li, you said my bracelet is weird. Is it true? Li Daochong turned and looked at Lu Jie. Of course it's true. Lu Jie nodded and said to Yang Xingyu, Xingyu, Manager Feng is waiting for you upstairs. Hurry up and go. Yang Xingyu looked into Lu Jie's eyes and quickly realized something. He didn't want to make things difficult for her, so he let go of her hand and said, Brat, you have guts. You'd better not let me see you in the future. Then he nodded to Lu Jie and turned to leave. Lu Jie was afraid that Li Daochong would continue to pester her because of Yang Xingyu's words. She immediately stretched out her hand and said, Mr. Li, what's wrong with this bracelet? Lu Jie's worry was actually unnecessary. Li Daochong didn't take any of Yang Xingyu's words to heart. He was about to build his foundation, so why would he care about an ordinary person's words? Li Daochong carefully looked at the bracelet and then stretched out his hand to touch Lu Jie's slender hand. Lu Jie looked a little helpless. It was not easy to work as a receptionist. Sometimes she knew that the customer wanted to take advantage of her, but she had to let him take advantage of her. Lu Jie wanted to retract her hand, but she was afraid of angering this young man who wanted to take advantage of her. Based on his conversation with Yang Xingyu just now, she could tell that this brat was a hothead. Just as Lu Jie was in a dilemma, Li Daochong's hand stopped in midair. He glanced at the nameplate on Lu Jie's chest and said, "Miss Lu, does your company sell special-grade spiritual liquid?" Lu Jie was stunned for a moment and replied, "Of course." Spiritual liquid is our company's main product, but special-grade spiritual liquid is expensive and can only be bought at the counter on the 5th floor of Xingyuan building. Do you want to buy it? Lu Jie came back to her senses, and the disgust in her eyes became even stronger. This brat had so many tricks up his sleeve. He was an expert at picking up girls and knew how to play hard to get. I've already suffered for you to touch me, and you actually have a new request. What? You want to buy special-grade spiritual liquid? Are you trying to tell me that you're rich? A 50 milliliters bottle of special-grade spiritual liquid costs about 1 million yuan. Can you afford it? Fine, since you want to pretend, I'll play with you. Lu Jie wanted to keep the peace, but this brat just wouldn't let her go. Today, no matter what, she had to expose this guy. And I want to buy a few bottles, Li Daochong replied. You want to buy a few bottles? Will you die if you don't show off? You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.